Tonight, voters head to the polls in 6 pivotal states, including California.
Let's get right to it.
Rachel Maddow and team will have results and what they mean late into the night. Special primary coverage tonight at 10 on
Good evening and welcome to the weeknight. I'm Alicia Menendez with Simone Sanders Townsend and Michael Steele. As we come on air, there are major primaries taking place tonight in 6 states. The results could help determine control of Congress and the strength of the opposition to Donald Trump. Claire McCaskill and Eugene Daniels are both at the table.
Also breaking, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche declares the slush fund is dead, but another major part of the Justice Department's deal with the president is moving forward. Congressman Dan Goldman is here to respond.
And the president appoints a MAGA crusader as acting director of national intelligence. What Republicans are saying about this outrageous decision, coming to you soon. Folks, let's begin with the breaking news. Right now, primary elections are underway in 6 states: California, Montana, New Mexico, South Dakota, Iowa, and the hot state of New Jersey. The 3 of us and the rest of the network will break down key races to watch all night long. And our special primary coverage with live results starts at 10 p.m. Eastern. As voters head to the polls thinking about the future of the country, Donald Trump is only focused on serving, of course, himself. But his administration is running into the limits of that self-centered agenda. Breaking moments ago, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche just surrendered, telling Congress the president's so-called slush fund is dead.
We are not moving forward with the fund, period. The reasons for the fund is something that President Trump talked about for a long time, which is the fact that there were a lot of people in this country who had their government weaponized against them, but we are not moving forward with the fund.
Oh, not moving forward ever?
Correct.
Oh, there's no more fund then?
Oh, you know, there's always something else. The slush fund is just one part of that story. Under that backroom deal with the IRS, Trump's Justice Department banned the agency from looking into Trump's past tax returns. Blanche says that part of the deal is still intact. And earlier today, the president created a new headache for Republicans by tapping Bill Pulte to serve as the acting director of national intelligence. Now, Pulte is the current head of a federal housing agency and has no national security experience. Republican senators are already pouncing on Trump's pick, saying Pulte is not qualified for the role. How it comes home to roost.
Child, I want the confidence of these folks that work in the Trump administration, because for anyone out there who's thinking about not applying for that next job, who's thinking about not raising their hand for their next project, I give you Bill Pulte. A man who is not just woefully underqualified. He has 0 qualifications for the role he was just put up to do. But he's not the only person. I would argue the DNI before him, Tulsi Gabbard, did not have any experience. I would argue that the current Secretary of Defense has no experience. I would argue there are actually a lot of people.
And most of the administration.
Yeah, honestly. So this should just, don't be afraid, folks. Raise your hand. Do the job. There are people with far less experience who are running at the highest levels of our government, Alicia. I mean, it's so insane.
The experience he has is the experience of being a loyalist, and right now that is the only qualification for any of these positions. I'm glad, Michael, that you came in putting these 2 stories side by side, the elections that we're following tonight all across this country, and the story about Pulte, the story about the slush fund supposedly being on ice. I think we all have a lot of questions about that, because as we're watching what unfolds tonight in these elections, there are lots of narratives that are flying around. There's a narrative about generational change. There's a narrative about which Democratic Party the Democratic Party wants to be. I think Democrats are actually very unified tonight about the fact that the single most important thing is winning and turning the page on the Donald Trump period and actually having a Congress that can rebuke this president. And I think we're going to see tonight the way in which voters, Michael, are interpreting that message.
Well, you know, look, the reality, and I'm glad the Democrats are unified. Somebody's got to be, because they sure as hell ain't unified on my side of the aisle. I mean, you got finally some of the dam or parts of the dam have broken. And we've seen that now, starting with the Epstein's files as the initial crack, and then you move on to other things. But this, I think, is significant because I don't think they want another Tulsi Gabbard in that job. And I don't think they want Republicans, that is, to carry that baggage with them into the campaigns this fall, along with all the other baggage the president is very good at saddling them with, which before they accepted. Now, not so much. Let's bring in MS Now political analyst and former Democratic Senator from Missouri, Claire McCaskill, and Eugene Daniels. He's the co-host of The Weekend, MS Now senior Washington correspondent, and co-host of the MS Now podcast. Clock it.
Yes, all right. We appreciate the clock.
Claire McCaskill, what were you thinking as you watched Todd Blanche talk to your former colleagues?
Well, first of all, if anybody believes them, they're not paying attention. If it's dead, then they ought to be the first one to sign up, the Republicans. I would think that Mike Johnson and John Thune tomorrow ought to hold a press conference and say, we're going to co-sign the legislation to make sure this never happens again. Because if it's dead, then they would want to make sure the Democratic president didn't sue himself and collect money or get immunity. So I think the political problem that has been created by this slush fund has gone nowhere because of lack of trust and because it needs to be in the law that this cannot ever be done. Nobody ever dreamed that somebody would do this. And let me just say this about Bill Pulte. You didn't ask me about that, but I can't wait.
Please.
Okay, I just can't wait. I can't wait. This is a sign that he will not be going to Congress for confirmations going forward. We're going to have a series of acting. Blanche can never get confirmed. So he's going to be done in 210 days, which I think is almost up. Then they'll have to put another acting in. This is going to be acting. That guy will be there for 210 days while he's busy trying to use his social media to put Letitia James in jail for nothing. He's not going to get confirmed. Will Donald Trump be able to confirm anyone ever again in the United States Senate? I will go on record right now and say I don't think he will unless he quits appointing people that are extreme MAGA nuts with no experience.
Well, I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, Claire, because the president has been very clear about the kind of people he wants to put up, to Claire's point. And I think not only is this a signal that he's not going to have any more actings, I think that the president is being very, as he usually is, he's rabidly vocal about what it is he wants to do. And Bill Pulte is not only someone that trumped up charges on social media about Tish James, but also about Lisa Cook, also about Adam Schiff, also this is now the person that he wants to put at the top of the apparatus that is our nation's secrets. In advance of a very consequential election where I believe the president is going to claim that there has been election interference by a foreign government. You know why? Because he's done it in every single other election he's been a part of. And so pay attention to Bill Pulte for sure. The other thing I think folks should pay attention to is a question Rosa DeLauro, Congresswoman, put on the table today to Todd Blanche. Take a listen.
You've taken one piece and you said, okay, we have had a ton of backlash on this on this $1.8 billion slush fund. However, so we'll not move on that. But as part of the settlement, which you've said, which is this immunity for the president and his family and his business, et cetera, that stands.
It's not immunity. Okay, so it's not immunity. What it says is like any time the IRS settles with an individual taxpayer or another company as part of the settlement, it's standard, it's typical to get rid of past ongoing audits.
Yeah, you should be laughing, Michael Steele. It's a bunch of words we can't say on national television because Rosa DeLauro, the Congresswoman, went on, Eugene, to read from the memo that Todd Blanche put out that spelled out immunity. So they're being very clear that, oh, we're not going to continue to slush fund. But what about this situation about the taxes? What about that?
There's no settlement. I don't know what Todd Blanche is talking about. There's no legal person who doesn't work for the Trump administration that I've talked to, that our colleagues have talked to, that will say that there has been a settlement. And therefore, anything that you do around it, calling it a settlement, is not legally binding, according to legal experts. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not a lawyer. But at the end of the day, what they are going to continue to push and push and push. I'll never forget the day before Donald Trump was elected. I was talking to some folks who ended up working in his DOJ, and they said, we're going to push the bounds of everything. And I said, everything? And they said everything. They said the legal, the political, the policy, all of it. And they have done that over and over and over again. And when you look at what Todd Blanche is doing, he's continuing to, and this is even folks in the White House know this, he's continuing to audition to get the top job. And I think the senator is right. I've talked to a lot of senators about the folks that Donald Trump wants to put in these positions, and they have said, not getting my vote. He's not going to get Tom Tillis's vote, right? He's not going to get Bill Cassidy's vote.
He's not going to get Susan Collins' vote.
Susan Collins' vote, right? There are a lot of people in the Senate who he's not going to get their vote. And on anything else, there's like 30 senators who are always back there waiting quietly, to counter the president on some of these things.
Senator, I want to dive a little bit into what you put on the table, because I think you are spot on about how this plays out going forward. At this point, Trump has assessed the political landscape expertly. He knows now. He's like, okay, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to go ahead and find someone. Eugene, you got the job for 210 days. Claire, you'll get the job for the 210 days after that. So he's going to go down his little pipeline of people to get him through what he's got to get through. While the ballroom is being built, the arch is being built, the Kennedy Center name, I still don't know who's going to enforce the judge's ruling. Please tell me who, Senator, if you know. And he knows that. There's no one to make him take his name off the Kennedy Center. But the problem for Republicans is everything I just said. Everything I just said. You've got Punchbowl News noting how toxic this man, the current president of the United States, is to this GOP. Tried to tell y'all that a long time ago, but let me read anyway from Punchbowl. Trump and Hill Republicans are trapped in a dangerous paradox. Trump's political endorsement is worth more than ever in GOP primaries. Yet his legislative agenda and fixation on personal projects are growing more toxic heading into the fall campaign season. As more Republicans move past their primaries, they're suddenly finding it advantageous to oppose him. Really? Really? Oh, now it's advantageous to oppose him. But here's the truth of that. That is even a fiction in my view, Claire, because I don't know how far they really are prepared to oppose him. I think a lot of this is fronting for the cameras. I think a lot of this is kind of BS crazy, because I give you one Mitch McConnell who stood in the well of the United States Senate and lambasted what the president did on January 6th and then voted not to convict. So you help me understand. You worked with them. You helped me, and you still, they don't talk to me.
Not as your fault, Claire.
It's your fault, you tell us. I mean, they don't talk to me anymore for obvious reasons, right? But the reality of it is what I just said.
Well, I think you're right on most of them, but we've got a handful. And keep in mind, for reconciliation, which is what they're trying to get done right now, they're trying to fund ICE and Border Patrol. That's what fell apart. Right. People said they wouldn't vote for that. They only have to have 4, okay? Only
and they seemingly have the 4.
Susan Collins is in a situation where if she gets on board with anybody who's obviously not qualified, or any, I mean, she's going to have to vote to do away with this slush fund business and letting presidents sue themselves and all that BS. Then you've got Tom Tillis. Okay, now you have Cassidy and Cornyn. Not sure either one of them are feeling the warm and fuzzies, and they're not running for anything. You've got Dan Sullivan out in Alaska. He's got an issue. You've got Tillis, who, has shown that he's ready. I mean, he's ready to lead the charge. So that's more than 4. So that means they have no hope of doing anything except something that Trump won't like with 60. And they have no hope of doing anything with reconciliation if the Democrats are successful in putting stuff in that bill that Trump can't take. Now, everybody, here's a dirty little secret about reconciliation. I don't want to get in the weeds because it's technical. But the amendments that are voted on during reconciliation do not have the force of law. It's a show thing. It's called Vote-A-Rama for a reason. They don't have the force of law. And what they
When
do
you
is-
say they don't have the force of law, for people listening, are you saying that those aren't real?
Yes, I'm saying they aren't real. I'm saying that they aren't real.
That's how our government functions, folks.
But typically, the way they make sure that happens, they do a wraparound at the end, which basically takes out all the. Now, the question is, will they have the vote for the wraparound? And even if they don't, most of those amendments are show amendments. But the Republicans are in trouble now because what those amendments are used for, I know, because I had to vote on some that were very, very tough in my state. And they're used for political commercials.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay.
They're designed to make 30-second ads. They're designed to make digital content that can, be used to go viral and target people through various algorithms. So the Republicans are in a tough place politically right now, and I don't see they've got any way out at this point. I do think that the people that thought they were going to have a safe re-election, like in Ohio and Iowa, and those Republican seats, I think they're in trouble.
Well, and the question about qualifications that you raise is particularly poignant for the DNI. This is from the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004. Quote, any individual nominated for appointment as Director of National Intelligence shall have extensive national security expertise. Real quick, can we just play all the Republican senators weighing in on Bill Pulte's expertise? Oh, I'm reading it. Enjoy my theatrical presentation. This is Thune. We don't need a weaponized DNI. We need professionals there. Tillis, I don't know of any national security experiences that he has. Cornyn, I see no evidence of any qualifications for that job. So all the wounded bears in the Wounded Bear Caucus are now finally, as you said, willing to go toe-to-toe with the president. Your sense when you talk to folks inside the White House, do they feel they have made a mistake here?
They do not care.
Yep.
Donald Trump doesn't care. President Trump doesn't care. I mean, because it is too late. We are in a year and a half into this presidency. If these folks had done this in the first go-around when some of the folks who, as Simone pointed out, maybe didn't have the right qualifications for their jobs, they have done that. If you were able to do that dramatic reading then, it would be something different. But at this point, Donald Trump and the White House see that no one's going to do anything. So they're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep putting in the folks for 210. Donald Trump has always liked acting because he feels like it keeps people on their toes. It keeps them auditioning for their jobs. It's all The Apprentice all over again, White House edition. But at the end of the day, this is a president who has not been shown by anyone in D.C. and really Republicans around the country that they're going to do anything but let him go and let Trump.
That's
in his first administration, he also had an acting DNI, Richard Grenell. Okay, so this is not new for him. He's run some of this playbook before.
Except he only stayed 96 days. Grenell did, and then they had somebody. So he truly was kind of acting. I think now they're going to just have them run the clock for as long as they can without ever trying to put him up in front of the
Which
Senate.
is why I asked the question, who's going to make him take his name off the building?
Maybe we'll have a Bree Newsom type. You know how she took the flag down off the Capitol in South Carolina? Yeah. Who's going to get up there and chisel off
I'm going to
Trump?
commercial break, people. Claire McCaskill, Eugene Daniels, thank you both so much for being with us. You can watch Eugene every Saturday, every Sunday, on the weekends, starting 7 a.m. Eastern, right here on MS Now. Stay with us. We're going to continue this conversation after a quick break with Congressman Dan Goldman and show you another wild moment from that hearing with Todd Blanche. Also ahead, more headaches for CBS News editor-in-chief Bari Weiss as another 60 Minutes veteran condemns her controversial overhaul of the news magazine. You're watching The Weeknight. Let's keep on that breaking news. Democrats have been calling for legislation to ban deals like the one that gave us, however briefly, Donald Trump's slush fund. And now they may have extra reason to take such a step. Here's what Blanche just told Congresswoman Grace Meng.
You established it in writing, so it just makes sense to rescind it in writing. I think a lot of Americans, both sides of the aisle, are concerned about it, and it would restore a lot of trust about this issue.
Okay, I'm not committing to doing anything in writing.
Not committing.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'll take it under advisement.
Wouldn't want it in writing. Joining us at the table, Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman of New York. He is a member of the Judiciary Committee.
You know, one of the primary concerns of the founders of our country, the framers of our Constitution, it was a reoccurring concern actually, was that the danger in creating a government that was populated by people whose primary goal was to please the ruler. And then another concern that they had were people who would take these jobs in the government, who would be concerned seemingly just with loyalty. It feels like Todd Blanche is that person. And you used to work with Todd Blanche at the Southern District of New York. I find it insane that this is where we are right now.
As do I and the vast, vast majority of my former colleagues who talk about Todd Blanche. And it's disappointing, but it's also just disgraceful. Because he knows better. He was a prosecutor for a long period of time in the Department of Justice in the Southern District of New York, and he was a good prosecutor. He followed the rules. I didn't even know he was Republican, if he is. He just did his work. He became a supervisor. He was very well respected and well liked. He knows how the Department of Justice is supposed to work. And literally everything that he is doing at this point is the exact opposite of how it is supposed to work. And I'm shocked that it is worse than Pam Bondi, but it is way worse. He is willing to literally do anything Donald Trump asks of him. Law, consequences, be done.
Well, that then really kind of puts the spotlight on the Hobson's choice that he has to make with respect to all of this. And the Washington Monthly put it this way: Blanche faces a Hobson's choice. Reject the giveaway, and Trump will never give him the top job or fire him. He could go the way of Jeff Sessions, Bill Barr, or Pam Bondi in the dustbin of history, or support the steal, and he won't be confirmed by the United States Senate. Which does he choose?
Well,
You
he's
work with
obviously,
Bernard, right?
at this point, I can't say anything I know about him, but he is so clearly going down the Trump loyalist route. And up until the slush fund, that was the right route because the Republicans had no spine. And even though we saw over and over and over, and whether it was the Comey indictment, the SPLC indictment, I mean, these things are atrocious. They are embarrassing for any prosecutor. And the Republicans just sat there silently watching. And we have a hearing in Congress, in the House, on the SPLC about how terrible they are. So, this indictment that they filed is an absolute abomination. So it was the right choice. But now, all of a sudden, the Republicans apparently have found their bottom. A make-believe $2 billion slush fund for Donald Trump's rioters and seditious conspirators to give them however much money in secret. That now we found the bottom, guys. We found it.
Maybe, because I don't think it's clear yet that this is going away, and I think it is notable that the sort of get-out-of-jail-free card is still being written for the president and his family.
Oh, well, that is for sure, and I think we will have a lot to say about that part of it. And let's just take a step back and remember, this settlement has nothing to do with the lawsuit.
Is it? Can we even call it a settlement at this point?
It is not a settlement. It is an agreement between Donald Trump personally and the Department of Justice that he supervises without any regard to the court case. Now, the judge has reopened the case because it was so obvious that they used this as a ruse and that they tried to avoid the judge. But right now, as this stands, there was never a court case. They withdrew it. And this is essentially just a settlement, agreement, whatever you call it, made up out of whole cloth. And it is the Department of Justice telling Donald Trump that he, his children, his family, and his businesses can literally do whatever they want with their taxes.
But they're above the law.
I was just asking Simone, when he lists it out that way, it's just like our little bucket. This is all for us. It's protected and covered, and you can't touch it.
It is just so crazy. I believe that they actually haven't found the bottom. They found pushback, I would argue, Congressman, because the Republican voters, Democratic voters, anybody who has put gas in their car have been at the pump when being asked by our MS Now colleagues, what do you think about what's going on in Washington? What do you think about this slush fund? And they're like, we're struggling to pay our bills. The president has told us there's no money for health care. I'm going to keep repeating it. There's no money for NPR. You know why? Because he cut it. There's no money for PBS. What did Elmo do? I'm going to continue to ask. There's no money for all of these things, child care, so on and so forth. But somehow there's $1.8 nearly billion for people who took up arms against the government to halt the certification process based on a lie told by the president. What your morals, not your morals are very out of whack, but your priorities are misplaced, and they met pushback, and now they're like, oh, okay, we didn't mean any of this. But
it goes
I don't
to
believe
show, but it is true, and I agree. We have no idea whether it's the bottom, because I agree with Michael as well that Donald Trump doesn't care. Donald Trump only cares about what he can get away with. Right. And so he will continue to push and pull on all of this stuff. But you're absolutely right about the gas prices and the health care. But think about something else. One of the Capitol Police officers, Sergeant Aquilino Gonell, was beaten so badly on January 6th that his foot was mangled, his leg was mangled. He had to retire because of his injuries. He has not been able to get disability payments. And now Donald Trump is trying to set up a slush fund to literally pay the people that beat this police officer. It is beyond comprehension.
But that is so Trump. That is so Trump to do stuff like that, because it's always focused on the people. That's the loyalty piece that he sort of puts out for folks. This is the payback for that. This is the their reparations, if you will, for what they did. And it really irks me, obviously. I think it irks a lot of the American people. Tonight we have big elections in California and Jersey and Iowa and places like that. This fall, huge elections around the country. How do you think the country settles on everything that's coming down the pike? The gas prices, the grift, the gaming, the insurrectionists being lifted up and foisted out as heroes, and the economies that, not just the personal economies, but the economies of communities in the country, stagnant, no growth, no opportunity. My son's over in the Middle East fighting a war that I don't know why he's there.
Cost $1.5 billion a day. Look, when you talk about politics, and you guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have, but there's usually one thing that you can go back to. What Donald Trump has done to these Republicans in Congress is he has literally taken away every single possible argument they could make to their constituents about why the last 2 years have been good. And we didn't even add in the immigration stuff, which is just, which used to be his thing and is so outrageous and unlawful, unconstitutional, un-American. And so you have it at the kitchen table issues. You have the corruption and the grift by him. You have weaponizing the Department of Justice and terrorizing our immigrant, not just our immigrant communities, any black and brown
American
community, whoever it is. And he doesn't care. So I really do think that my colleagues in the House are petrified about what's coming their way, because the additional thing, as you pointed out, is Donald Trump doesn't even seem to care. I think he recognizes he's losing the majority, and he is basically taking the next 6 months and doing everything that he possibly can to line his pockets, to take care of his cronies and his loyalists.
There it is. Well, I know a couple of Republicans that we're talking to. The question now is how small will their minority be in the House? because of all of this. Congressman Dan Goldman, thank you so much. Really appreciate you, friend, for being here. Ahead, 60 Minutes is in crisis mode, just hours after correspondent Scott Pelley torched the magazine's new leadership. The show's former executive producer piled on. The details coming up next right here on The Weekly.
Bill Owens, the longtime executive producer of 60 Minutes, is the latest former staffer condemning the controversial overhaul of the TV news magazine. In remarks to the New York Press Club, Owens called CBS News editor-in-chief, Barry Weiss, quote, an opinion writer best known for being an ideologue. Okay, well, Owens also said the program's recent firings came from, quote, people who don't even know what we do and don't actually care. That's a quote. Now, Owens made the remarks while accepting the Press Club's Truth to Power Award. Joining us now is Tim O'Brien, senior executive editor for Bloomberg Opinion and an MS Now political analyst.
Quote. Tim, this real easy out of the gate. Contextualize for folks why what we're seeing play out at CBS is something to be concerned about, is something that is important relative to our founding, all right? First Amendment, the only industry, if you will, mentioned in the Constitution is the press.
The press.
Right? So why is this a story? Why is this important as we begin to go into the summer months? And what we see happening there, what that portends for media at all levels, at all platforms going forward.
So there's a deal hanging over this whole event. But then before we get to the specifics of what's happening at 60 Minutes, the Ellisons got control of Paramount, which owns CBS, with the support of Donald Trump. But for Larry Ellison, David Ellison's father, his relationship with Trump, and then the money he was able to put in the deal to effect it, this deal wouldn't have happened. So this starts, and Paramount's also now the successful bidder for Warner Brothers, which owns CNN. And so you've got a company that has overtly allied with the president in the past and around these deals, getting control of two primary news outlets in a moment of epic, seismic change in their business models, in our politics, and where the audience's attention reside. And so there's a heightened concern about whether or not journalists and the places they work for will be effective stewards of the public trust and will hold people in power in any party accountable. And then coming into this, CBS had already, in the previous ownership, before the Ellisons took over, settled with the Trump White House, paid Trump essentially a grooming fee by acknowledging that perhaps an episode on Kamala Harris was improperly edited. And it was acquiescence. It was nothing more than that. So coming into this, any wise owner of a new company like CBS would want to reassure people, if they cared about journalism, that they were going to put people in charge of the model who knew what they were doing. You know, Barry Weiss, I think what she did at the Free Press is an amazing thing. She started it out of the blue. She captured a segment of the zeitgeist that is hard to do. She populated it with interesting writers. I knew Nick Bilton at the New York Times. He pitched pieces to me. He was an interesting and thoughtful journalist. When he was at Vanity Fair, he interviewed me about Donald Trump. Nick did not pull any punches in that interview about Trump. But neither of them have broadcast experience. They both clearly need mentoring and guidance in all of this. Neither one of them are getting it from above up to this point. There's been more evidence of it with Barry Weiss. I think what she did to the CBS Evening News put people on their back heels because it's appeared cartoonish, sometimes at best. And then you're coming into 60 Minutes, which is this more than 50 years old. It has 9 million viewers. Its ratings have been going up. Nothing appears to be broken. And they do a mix of serious journalism and lifestyle journalism.
Tim, this don't sound like an accident. This feels very intentional, what Ms. Weiss has done.
Well, look, I mean, they own it. She's entitled to go in there and try to do something new with it. And what they've said is they wanted, but here's the part where I depart, is they said that they anticipate the ratings will start to sag. They anticipate there will be problems because, as we know, cable and broadcast journalism is going through a seismic change, just like print journalism did, just like radio journalism did. Go ahead.
I take Cecilia Vega at her word when she says that her experience as a seasoned and professional journalism inside of that newsroom was one of censorship. And I take Bill Owens at his word when he defends his colleague Scott Pelley after those reports we had yesterday of a tense meeting with Nick Bilton. This is the quote from Bill Owens: "Scott can smell a fraud from a mile away. He stood up the way I did a year ago, and I couldn't be prouder of him. And I know all the people at 60 Minutes couldn't be more proud of him. So in a way, I'll accept this award today on behalf of my friend Scott and all the people at 60 Minutes. I think part of what is so challenging about this story is that the organizing here is asymmetric. Normally you would say, well, how does one get their attention? How do you change what is happening? That's not actually the game, because the decision that's being made is a business decision that has to do with mergers and acquisitions, not with whether or not 60 Minutes is actually making money in this moment.
Well, and in fact, I don't think it's just a business decision. They're clearly doing things that are ideological. They're ideological. They're not business decisions. And so if you remove a journalist like Sharon Alfonsi, right, or Cecilia Vega, and Anderson Cooper leaves, like, you already have bleeding in an esteemed organization. If you're new to the management, maybe you take it more slowly. And maybe before you do a town hall meeting like Nick did, you actually lay out to the staff in private what you want to do. And then you actually have a very well thought out public acknowledgement of the change everyone's going through, and then what you want to do with it. So far, what they've said is they want to do more documentaries in more places. That's not a strategy. That's a fire hose.
I know we have to go, but I think that people at home should care about this, because I think everything you said is correct. But they should care about this because this is a story about the information infrastructure in this country. We often think of infrastructure as like roads and bridges, but infrastructure in a democracy is the courts. Infrastructure in democracy is journalism. And the way in which the news matters because it colors what people believe to be, what is their reality.
And we're in a year where every institution, Trump has attacked every institution at its core. And this is it. And in this case, it's an institution under attack that is essentially acquiescing to him.
Tim O'Brien, thank you so much
Thank you.
for being at the table.
Thanks,
in
man.
minutes,
Thank
the
you.
first polls are closing as 6 states cast their primary ballots tonight. We are heading to Iowa for a live report out of the state that could decide control of Congress come this November. Do not go anywhere. You're watching The Weeknight.
Okay, folks, let's get back to the breaking news of the night. We're just moments away from polls closing in New Jersey. It's just one of the 6 states holding primary races that we'll be watching all throughout the night, including in Iowa, a state that could be a key factor in deciding who controls Congress. And that's where we'll turn our focus now with MS Now reporter Alex Tabbitt in Des Moines. Alex, good to see you, bud.
Good to see you, too. I want to show you guys where we're at right now. We are actually at a retirement home in Des Moines, Iowa. Houses about 300 senior citizens here. Not a huge crowd right now for dinner. It's getting late. But this retirement home has water aerobics over there, bingo down there, and come with me, check this out, a polling center built right in. This is democracy in action. Here in Iowa, they boast a 74% voting participation rate. Voting is in the blood of this state. They love doing it, and we've been seeing the elderly come in and out all day. There's 2 very intriguing races here in Iowa right now. The first is the GOP primary for the governor's race. Up until last Friday, it wasn't clear who the frontrunner was, and then President Trump endorsed Representative Randy Feenstra. Tonight, if Representative Randy Feenstra comes out with a huge lead, a lot of that will come down to President Trump's endorsement. The other big race that we're watching is the Senate Democratic primary. That's between Josh Turek, who's a Paralympian, 2 golds, 1 bronze for Team USA in wheelchair basketball. He's running on his inspirational life story. Meanwhile, there's the underdog candidate, progressive Zach Walz, who's running on taking on the establishment Democratic Party. That's another race that we will be focusing on as well. Now, given we're at a retirement home, we wanted to ask these voters a question about President Trump's age. Do they believe President Trump is too old to be in the White House? I want you to hear what one voter had to say.
Well, I don't think it has to do with age necessarily. I think it has to do with his cognitive ability. You know, every day I look at the tangents that he goes onto, and there have certainly been older people who have been leaders in our country who have been very on task and able to lead, but it's his cognitive ability is not such that he should be a leader.
And the overall vibe, the overall answer that we've been hearing from this question is that age is just a number. It's really temperament and judgment that might be in question for President Trump. Guys?
All right. MS Now's Alex Tabbitt. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
All right, Simone, you know you were dealing over here with a non-believer.
You know what? I've got some thoughts for Michael Steele.
It's just a number.
In August of 2025, so last August, a Democrat won a seat, and it was Senate District 1. A Democrat won that seat by a shift of 22 points from 2024. That matters because Donald Trump won that district by 11 points in 2024. The Democrat winning that seat broke the supermajority in the Iowa State Senate. That matters. And so Iowa is a state that matters here. Democrats...
How does breaking the stranglehold in the state Senate of Iowa move the national needle?
Okay, because it says that the voters in Iowa are paying attention, one, and two,
and other voters
that they are willing to do some things that they haven't done in a couple of cycles. And so there are a number of...
How does that translate politically?
What do you mean how it translates politically? That means that
You're saying Iowa's a bellwether of what the country's going to do?
I am saying that what happens tonight in Iowa and what happens in November in Iowa can make a difference. Iowa could elect a Democratic governor in November, and Rob Sand. Iowa could send a Democrat to the United States Senate because Joni Ernst is retiring. Okay. Iowa could send some Democrats back to the House of Representatives. At one point, of the five congressional seats, Democrats represented 3 in my lifetime.
You made the case for the Midwest. God bless you.
So if not Iowa, what are you keeping your eye on tonight?
You don't care about this?
No, I do. I do. Come on, I do. Now, the California race to me is going to be very, very interesting, largely because the way the Democrats came into that race, and it's going to be important to see how they come out of it. I think they've done some really good catch-up and coordination and tamping down the crazy that was starting to take place. We'll see how they do tonight.
I think it's going to be really interesting, too, to see how messages require the correct messenger. Like, can Tom Steyer deliver this message about being willing to go toe-to-toe with billionaires when he is one? Graham Plattner and the message he is trying to deliver in Maine about working people. How does it all land?
Amid the text messages, do the people care? We wait to find out. That does it for the weeknight, folks. We will see you back here tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. Senator Gary Peters, the ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee, will join us. Make sure to keep it tuned to MS Now for the rest of the night. Up next on All In, Chris will be joined by Senator Cory Booker to respond to the protests happening in the city he used to run, Newark, New Jersey. And then special election coverage begins at 10 Eastern. The three of us will be there alongside Rachel Maddow for analysis throughout the night, with Ali Velshi breaking down results as they roll in at the big board in a vest. Don't go anywhere, though, because All In with Chris Hayes will start after a break.
Tonight on All In.
I think he's losing it. I think he's too old.
Voters head to the polls in Iowa, New Jersey, California, and beyond. Tonight, Jacob Soboroff on the big stakes in the Golden State and Ali Velshi at the big board. Then,
we happen to have the head of Fannie Mae, and where is Mr. Pulte? Right here, Pulte. He's done a great job.
Senator Cory Booker on the growing alarm over Trump's choice for Director of National Intelligence.
This lady signed these documents or she didn't. She committed mortgage fraud or she didn't.
Plus, Senator Tim Kaine on the president's boredom with Iran and about that slush fund.
The reasons for the fund, I think, it remain as important as they were before, but we are not moving forward with the fund.
Not moving forward ever.
Correct.
What we know about what the president is still getting.
You just gave the president and his family a tax immunity to the tune of about $100 million.
Not true.
But All In starts right now. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. It is a Tuesday during a midterm election year, which means it is election night in America once again. Tonight, the marquee race, of course, is in California. That's where dozens upon dozens of candidates are running in the open, nonpartisan primary to replace the term-limited Governor Gavin Newsom, who clearly has thoughts about what he wants to do next. Right now, the top two Democrats in polling are progressive philanthropist Tom Steyer and former Biden Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra. Neither candidate was pegged as a frontrunner for much of this race. Becerra, in particular, was polling in single digits as recently as March. But, of course, he surged in recent weeks following the implosion of Congressman Eric Swalwell's campaign amid allegations of sexual misconduct, which he denies. Steyer, for his part, is running as the left populist candidate, despite himself being a billionaire, framing himself as a self-proclaimed class traitor in the mold of FDR. Meanwhile, the Republican frontrunner is a former Fox News host, a guy named Steve Hilton. Today, Donald Trump urged his supporters to turn out for him rather than Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, who is the other major Republican candidate. Now, remember how elections work in California, which is a little different than other places. Everyone runs together in one nonpartisan primary, which means it's entirely possible that the two nominees for the general election will both be Democrats. It's even possible they would both be Republicans if a large enough Democratic field split the vote enough. As of right now, the likeliest option will be one Democrat and one Republican. We're also watching a crowded race to replace retiring Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco. That's been a really interesting one. Of course, in Los Angeles, incumbent Mayor Karen Bass is up for re-election. She's facing a primary challenge from her left, while former reality TV personality Spencer Pratt is running as a conservative independent. We're going to have much more on those California races later tonight. In fact, I'm going to join Rachel Maddow, the rest of the team at the big table for some late night special coverage. There are some other interesting races to watch tonight, though, because in New Jersey, where polls just closed moments ago at 8 p.m., Democrats are aggressively competing in a bunch of swing districts that will determine control of the House, including perhaps the most important and the most tantalizing for the Democrats in terms of a pickup. There is currently a four-way primary in the district, currently represented by Republican Tom Kean. That's the state's 7th district. Now, the reason this is a particularly interesting race is it's a district that even before this year was eyed as one that would be very, very competitive. It's a very, very centrist district. It moves back and forth. But the other reason that this is now a very contested seat is that the congressman representing it, Tom Kean Jr., has not been seen publicly for almost 3 months. He's missed more than 100 votes in the House. His aides have said he has been absent due to a personal medical issue and will return soon. He is still trading stocks, though, according to stock disclosures. Yesterday, Kean received Trump's, quote, complete and total endorsement, adding that Tom is working tirelessly and will never let you down. In Iowa, Democrats Josh Turek and Zach Walz are running in a primary to replace the retiring incumbent Republican Senator Joni Ernst. There will be no surprise in the Democratic gubernatorial primary in that state. That's because Rob Sand, who we just had on the program last week, I believe, is running unopposed. And Mr. Sand has a real shot at flipping the governor's mansion come November. He's the only statewide elected Democrat in that state. Nearly across the board, the message from Democratic candidates is a promise to work on affordability and to hold the Trump administration accountable, to push back on the way things are going, to make a wrong track of the country into a right track. Because right now, the Trump administration is governing as though accountability simply does not exist. In fact, more than ever, the lower the polling gets, the more they behave that way. I mean, just today, another just totally jaw-dropping, gobsmacking, leave-you-speechless kind of news alert when it was announced that Donald Trump was announcing a flagrantly, almost impossibly unqualified candidate to replace Tulsi Gabbard as the director of national intelligence. It's the man you see there. He's a guy named Bill Pulte, who's spent the last year digging into the mortgage records of the president's critics to hound them with malicious prosecutions. That guy, Trump's attack dog. That guy, who, by the way, has zero intelligence or national security experience whatsoever, Trump wants to put him in charge of the entirety of the American intelligence apparatus, all 11 agencies, all the spies, all the wiretaps, all the satellites, all the human into that guy, all of it. We'll have more on that later in the show. Today, we also learned that Trump's acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who's very clearly auditioning for a permanent role as the Attorney General, told Congress that the $1.8 billion slush fund for insurrectionists is apparently no more. They appear to be withdrawing the current proposal, although it remains to be seen what this White House puts forward instead. It's very clear the public backlash was more significant than the administration expected. And it's exactly why, and this is something we come back to again and again on this program, why public opinion, the basics of it, persuasion, convincing people of your views, arguing about things, right? Public opinion and small d Democrats still matter. In fact, they matter more than they have ever mattered in the decades I've been covering politics. And it's also why Democrats right now feel very bullish about their chances come November. Joining me now, MS Now Chief Data Reporter Ali Velshi at the board. Ali, you want to just start with the latest in New Jersey and then take us through what this night's going to look like?
Yeah, tonight we're going to get numbers from New Jersey. We're looking at Iowa. We're looking at South Dakota, New Mexico, Montana, and California. California is not colored in, by the way, because it's not a partisan primary, as you just explained. But let's look at the primaries in New Jersey to start with. I'm going to start with the Republican primary because you talked about the 7th district is uncontested. Tom Kean is the incumbent there, and as you said, he hasn't been seen, so nobody knows where he is. But there's a good contest to compete with him. Rebecca Bennett is one of the candidates here. Tina Shah was an assistant to an advisor to Andy Kim. We're going to be watching this one very, very closely. But as of now, we do not have any numbers in from New Jersey just yet. Take a look at Iowa for a second. This is interesting because, as you said, there are two candidates running here, Josh Turek and Zach Walz. Zach Walz, you'll remember from 2011, got up and made that speech at a public hearing about how he's got two mothers. He's been involved in politics in the state for some time. Josh Turek is polling a little higher. He's in the lead at the moment, but again, no numbers, and we won't have numbers for a little while there. But that's interesting because the idea that we're actually talking about Iowa as a place where a U.S. Senate candidate might be in contention, once again, is an interesting story. Let's go again to, I'm going to press on open primaries, which means nonpartisan, and we go to California, where you discussed what happens there. You end up with a situation where people can run, you can end up with 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans in a given district. We're looking at a lot of districts here. Why? Because 5 of them were changed as a result of what happened to Texas. In theory, there are 5 districts where Democrats can win. So what you're looking at here is to see whether the 2 candidates, the 2 top vote getters in the 5 different districts that we're looking at in California end up being Democrats, which would mean that one of them will be a Democrat when we see the election. And then finally, the gubernatorial race, which is remarkable, and I'll show you why. There are 60 people in this race for governor. Now, look, it's not going to come down to 60 people. It's come down to about 3 or 4 people. I'm trying to find the one. You know, there's some really interesting candidates here, including one whose name is For the Love of God or something like that. Like that's his actual, they're Living for God and Country DeMott. But most importantly, we're looking at the front of the race here. And Xavier Becerra, who has his claim to fame is he sued the administration 122 times as the Attorney General. He's probably polling in the top spot. Steve Hilton, former British citizen, is in the number 2 spot, very MAGA-y. And then Tom Steyer, the billionaire, who was sort of in politics and a big climate guy before being a billionaire was a sort of an albatross around your neck. So it's a really interesting conversation that progressives are having in California, because what they'd like to do is come out of the night with Becerra and Tom Steyer at the top of the ticket, which means come November, a Democrat will be the governor of California. Again, I should warn you and everybody else, it's going to be a late night. Last time around when there were primaries, it was 6 in the morning Eastern, and only 52% of the vote had come in. Because Californians like to vote by mail. They're really good at it. But in this particular case, because the top vote getter, the person who was at the top of the polls, Eric Swalwell, pulled out, a lot of people just held their ballots back. They were having trouble deciding which of these 2 candidates they're most interested in on the Democratic side. A lot of progressive groups are saying basically hold your nose and support Tom Steyer. Yes, he's a billionaire, but you want these 2 guys in the front of the Democratic race. As you said, it's entirely likely that it's one of these guys and Steve Hilton, but it'll be very interesting for Democrats if the two top vote getters in the Democratic race for governor end up both being Democrats. So lots and lots and lots to look at over the next many, many hours together.
All right, Ali Velshi, we're going to be checking back with you throughout the night, later in this show, and then later in the evening. Thank you. That was great. Jacob Soboroff, of course, is the host of Connect here on MS Now. That's starting June 13th. He joins me now from Los Angeles. Jacob, first, just tell me where you are and what you're hearing.
Chris, I got to do a little bit of a golf announcer voice for a second until I walk outside, but this is the heart of downtown Los Angeles. I am in a polling place at the intersection of Grand Avenue and 5th Street, really smack in the middle of downtown LA, which is pretty neat, actually, because about a year ago, you and I were live on this very network as the first spontaneous protests broke out just blocks away from here to those ICE raids here in LA. And over the course of the last year, we have seen literally hundreds of thousands of people come to the streets of downtown Los Angeles in a stand against this administration, which I'll talk a little bit more about once we get outside. But check it out. I mean, the vibes are strong here right now, and I can show you through these windows, actually. The line stretches all the way around the block from Grand Avenue down 5th Street. This is the end of the line, and people are stretching around here as people are voting inside. And you can see folks up here. Here in California, as our dear friend Ali Velshi said, we have a great early voting system here. I'm so sorry. Go ahead. You guys been online for a minute? Everybody doing okay? Doing okay? How long have you been waiting for?
Not too long.
Not too long? Okay. Just want to make sure. 30 minutes? Okay. All right. That's actually pretty long for polling places in LA, but I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're getting close. Most people, in fact, everyone has the opportunity to vote early or no excuse with a mail-in ballot. These people, of course, have waited until the last day to come in person. It's actually pretty impressive as I both turn up my voice and people who are driving home at the end of the workday, Chris, have got their volume very loud on their car stereos to show up and participate in this consequential day here, and not just California politics, but in national politics. We have got the gubernatorial race here, of course, Gavin Newsom being termed out of office, but we've also got this mayoral race here in Los Angeles with MAGA light Spencer Pratt, reality show star, contending against Karen Bass, along with another progressive candidate, Nithya Raman. So many issues to talk about here. So much at stake, not just for the people of California and Los Angeles, but across the nation, with Gavin Newsom playing an outsized role in standing up to Donald Trump over the course of the last year, and certainly over the course of his terms as governor of California.
Tell me about this California gubernatorial race, which, has been a strange one. I mean, first of all, it's not that hard to get on the ballot, right? So you've got a ton of people, 60 people. Second of all,
61.
61, right? So second of all, I think, there would be an obvious person who I think would run away with it would be Kamala Harris. She did not want to run for governor, and she announced that pretty early on. And then third of all, you had the early polling in terms of fundraising, I think momentum and some early endorsements, and also polling. Eric Swalwell, the congressman, was looking like he was kind of in pole position, the driver's seat. And then, of course, enormous scandal engulfing him. And it's led to a strange situation. Talk us through how that's played out a little bit and what you're looking for tonight.
As you guys have talked about, we have a top two vote getter system here in California, both on the statewide level and here in the Los Angeles mayoral race. It's a nonpartisan primary election. And early on, before Donald Trump endorsed the Fox News contributor Steve Hilton, it was looking like there might have even been two Republicans that could have advanced, because there were so many Democrats, including Katie Porter and Antonio Villaraigosa, the former mayor of Los Angeles, running here. And as you mentioned, Eric Swalwell, Javier Becerra, Tom Steyer, the list goes on and on and on in the general election. But with only 25% of voters in California being Republican, Donald Trump's endorsement of Steve Hilton sort of consolidated the Republican vote is actually not necessarily a good thing for Steve Hilton to advance. Those Democrats now seem to be surging, both Steyer and Becerra, who is not just the former Secretary of Health and Human Services here in California, but also a former state legislator here in California, a former congressman from this part of the city of Los Angeles, someone who is very familiar, ran for mayor of Los Angeles in 2001, and in a state with a 30% Latino population, the son of Mexican immigrants. And so his story has resonated with a lot of people in the wake of Swalwell dropping out in this state that has dealt perhaps as acutely as any other with the immigration enforcement apparatus of this administration that played out on these very streets. So his surge is a late one, but we will see him here in Los Angeles tonight at the end of the evening when, if he does advance, he'll be making remarks here in the Boyle Heights area, in the downtown Los Angeles area of this city.
you've also got there's also the strangeness, right, that we've all been sort of pulled into the vortex of Donald Trump's attempts to tip the scales, right, of this midterm election, to redraw maps in a way completely divorced from precedent in state after state. California responding, of course, taking it to the voters to make sure they had their stamp of approval. And so there's a bunch of new congressional districts tonight with competitive primaries, as Ali was mentioning, where people sort of launching possible new congressional careers.
Yes, that's exactly right. We're not going to know, obviously, the results of the midterm elections tonight, but we will have great insight into what is going to happen in those potentially 5 new Democratic pickups here as a result of Proposition 50. We were all on the air together. I was up in Sacramento when Gavin Newsom put that ballot initiative on the ballot here in California to redraw the congressional district maps here in California that had been historically nonpartisan after an initiative by Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the early 2000s to compete with those efforts by Republican legislatures to take the franchise away from so many people by redrawing the maps in favor of Republicans in all of those states. And so now that we have these new maps, particularly in the 48th district and the 22nd district, one in the Central Valley and one in inland San Diego County, there will be an interesting test of the strength of Democratic politics in the state of California with these new congressional districts that could go to the Democrats coming online. It's also going to be interesting to see what happens even in deep, deep blue Los Angeles in the mayor's race here with Spencer Pratt in the wake of both the fires and the immigration raids, who has stepped up as this mini MAGA candidate, you know, talking ostensibly about affordability and about the homelessness crisis here in Los Angeles, but talking about unhoused folks in the unhoused capital of America, like Donald Trump talks about migrants, wanting to put them in camps, partnering with the federal government to take them off the streets. It's a real test of the strength of Democratic politics here in L.A. to see if progressive Democrat Nithya Raman ends up in the runoff against longtime Congresswoman and now Mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, too, Chris.
That's another thing we'll be looking at. Jacob Soboroff, what a pleasure. Thank you, sir. We will see much more of you tonight, much more election coverage from California and beyond ahead. First, Senator Cory Booker on Trump's shocking, truly shocking new pick for Director of National Intelligence next. We're back. We're watching results come in. We've got winners in 3 Democratic congressional primaries in New Jersey. Now, these are all expected because these are the incumbents representing these districts, which are pretty solidly blue districts. Congressman Rob Menendez, Congresswoman Ana Lilia Mejia. Remember, she won that special election to replace the current governor, Mikey Sherrill. She's also won her primary now. And LaMonica McIver, of course, who is being prosecuted by the Trump administration for her presence outside Delaney Hall. All 3 of them have won their primary races. Again, that's expected, and those are districts we do not expect to be competitive, although the future is unwritten, right? You never know what's going to happen. Speaking of never know what's going to happen, Donald Trump named his new acting director of national intelligence on social media today, and boy, it just stopped me in my tracks because it's that dude, Bill Pulte. He's kind of like a legacy case. His daddy's got a big company. He's a private equity millionaire. He's a Trump donor with zero experience in intelligence or national security. And last year, Trump made this guy the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. That's a pretty important body that oversees the mortgage markets, improves housing affordability. It's another job that Pulte was totally unqualified to do. But of course, that job also gives him access to mortgage documents from millions of American homeowners. And as far as we can tell, what it looks like from the outside is that he's used that perch with access to those records to search through them and gin up absurd accusations of mortgage fraud against a who's who's list of Trump's perceived enemies, and referred some of them from prosecution, including California Congressman Adam Schiff, New York Attorney General Letitia James, and sort of most significantly, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook, who the Trump administration is trying to fire and whose case in trying to fire him is currently before the Supreme Court. Now, of those 3, the DOJ has only charged James, and a judge later dismissed those very same charges. Even Republicans have criticized Pulte and these preposterous witch hunts. One House member called him a nut. He's reportedly gotten into a yelling match with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. So what might this hatchet man for Trump do as the guy overseeing all 18 intelligence agencies? Trump's far-right allies, including Steve Bannon, seem to hope Pulte can use that sensitive intel basically to go after the left domestically.
I certainly hope that the appointment of Bill Pulte over there, while Bill is a time where the DNI can actually start digging in on the domestic side of terrorism as well as the international.
Oh, it has to. I think that's one of the. I think it's one of the reasons Pulte's selected, because Pulte will go there.
Now, Bill Pulte's only qualification for position, the only one, is that he abused his power to indulge Trump's worst, most tyrannical impulses, to weaponize the government for personal revenge, to suppress dissent and criticism, right? The kinds of things that a dictator does. And now Trump wants him to run the most powerful, far-reaching intelligence apparatus in the modern world, while, by the way, also hanging on to his job overseeing U.S. mortgage markets, because why not? Senator Cory Booker is a Democrat in New Jersey. He's also on the ballot today, running uncontested. He won his primary race tonight. He'll be up for re-election in the general election. So congratulations on that, Senator, and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Appreciate you.
Well, I got the news alert and just literally stopped in my tracks with the Pulte thing. What was your reaction?
I was asked by a reporter and literally didn't believe them. I told them, this can't be true. I'm going to check their facts. And I'm stunned. Literally, the statute says this was formed, that position was formed because of the lack of coordination that allowed attacks of 9/11 to happen. And it says, the statute explicitly, they shall have extensive, that's the word, national security experience. This person has none of that. It is a joke from an administration that is not serious, and their lack of seriousness and desire not for expertise, but for loyalty to Trump and willingness to break the law, that's going to endanger our country. This is a president that looks not for experience, but for people that will extend his corruption, his chaos, and his cruelty.
Yeah, just to stay on this for a second, I mean, there's two aspects of this, but to start on the first one, which you note here is, this is a serious and important job. We're currently in a war. Although there's an ostensible ceasefire, although there's arms, there's bombings being exchanged, missile fire being exchanged today. And first and foremost, it does seem a real problem to put someone who has no business doing the job in charge of the coordination of the intelligence agencies.
Yeah, look, we have professionals that keep us safe every day that are not political, that do their job. The thought that somebody who's already shown their willingness to use their position to drum up charges on the head of the Fed or senators themselves. This guy has shown that his sole purpose is to try to go after Trump's enemies. Well, imagine giving them the apparatus of our national intelligence agencies. This is scary and terrifying, but it's also showing that you don't take the threats to our country seriously, and you're willing to sacrifice our security in order to have a loyalist who's going to go after your perceived enemies. This is crazy and corrupt and very dangerous.
So he's being pointed under I think the Vacancy Reform Act, meaning like as an acting, right? They're going to try to sort of sidestep any Senate confirmation. I think they understand that it would be an uphill battle. Senator John Cornyn expressing some doubt. I do wonder, this seems to me in the same category as a sort of seditionist slush fund, like so out past the frontier of the colorably defensible that maybe it won't work. And on that note, I want to ask about your reaction to what we saw from Todd Blanche today, which is after, I think, pretty close to unanimous outrage and resistance to the seditionist slush fund, it appears as if that part is being pulled back, killed permanently or not. It's a little unclear. Here's what he had to say. I'd like to get your reaction. Take a listen.
Look, we're not moving forward with the fund. You're right that there's a date that in the case in the East District of Virginia in June, but we are not moving forward with the fund, period.
So they say the fund's dead, period. Do you believe them?
No, of course. I mean, the Trump administration has lied repeatedly to the American people, and we should not take them at their word. The Senate should move to put into law that this slush fund cannot be created, and that Donald Trump, because remember, it's part of the settlement, that he gets a get out of jail free for. Any tax cheating that him or his family has done over the past years, they get absolved from that cheating. And that's another aspect of this. We should not allow that to happen. We should pass legislation to make sure it doesn't and hold him accountable. These are all tests from an ill-qualified person who's putting our country in danger, that's just been put at the head of the DNI, to this. These are tests for the Republicans of where do your loyalty stand to the Constitution or to the President of the United States, to the people, or to the wannabe dictator. And right now, I hate to tell you this, The Republican Party is failing this test, and history will judge them.
We have those New Jersey results in there on the right side of your screen. And excuse me. I want to ask you about a member of the New Jersey delegation. New Jersey politics is a pretty small world. Tom Kean Jr., I'm sure you know him. You work with him. I find this whole thing strange. And obviously, if anyone is undergoing illness, you feel sympathy for them and wish them well. But there's been a complete and total blackout. He hasn't been seen. He keeps saying, I'll be back and I'll let you know what's happening. Again, it feels to me like a figure in public life owes a little more to voters than that. But do you have any insight into the situation?
Yeah, so first of all, you pray for his well-being. I don't know what's going on. The first thing I'm doing is praying that he's okay. The second thing I say is you are a public official. You hold an office, but you also hold the public trust. And this is, to me, a betrayal of the public trust for them not to level with the American people about what's going on here. And the third thing I'm going to say is we're going to beat them. We're going to take back that seat. I am on a tear. I've now, as you said, won my primary, and I'm going to lead this ticket to take back that congressional seat. Up and down the ticket, I'm going to be working across this country. And forgive the advertisement, but please go to CoryBooker.com if you want to empower me to be a beast in this fight to take back the Senate, to take back the House, and to make sure all New Jersey candidates are glorious in November. Please go to CoryBooker.com, put some fuel in my tank, because I'm ready to fight.
Channeling the Stanford tight end, rumbling down the field, evading tacklers. The final question I have for you is about something else that's been going on in your state and in your home city of Newark, or outside Newark, in the Delaney Hall, which is the DHS facility that has been the subject of complaints of really profoundly inhumane treatment, an ongoing hunger strike, protests which have now been the subject of tear gas and actions by state police to clear them. What do you think should happen with Delaney Hall right now?
Well, Delaney Hall should close. It's a moral obscenity. This is a massive corporation that's making profit off of people's pain, money off of people's misery. They are literally showering Republicans and the president with campaign contributions and other donations to get $1 billion profit. And so when I visited there and saw women that one had a miscarriage, they didn't even believe her. Another woman was pregnant. And the stories of them trying to go to the doctor, you know, a GEO Group, this private corporation, doesn't want to hire more medical personnel because that takes away from their profit. And so there are people in that facility who do not belong there, who pose no harm, who are ripped away from American children, American spouses, American families, from our communities. And it is a nightmare, and it should close. And we should hold accountable this private corporation who is ripping off the American people and furthering the corruption of the Trump administration.
All right, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, a state that is counting its votes right now. We're going to get close to polls closing in Iowa. Senator, thank you very much. We're going to have Ali Velshi back to look at the big races in the Hawkeye State and elsewhere right after this break. Don't go anywhere.
I can't even, I'm scared that I'll never own a house because this is ridiculous. All the prices are crazy. No one's hiring. The job market is terrible. I'm scared that I'm going to live with my parents forever, honestly. And the gas prices, it's so rare to see it above $4. And now that it is, it's just kind of, I feel like I'm being shot financially. It's just crappy. It sucks.
I feel like I'm being shot financially. That's about as good an articulation of the general view of the American economy by voters right now as you'll hear. We're, of course, monitoring all the election results coming in tonight, including from that state, from Iowa, where that voter shares his concerns about affordability with MS Now reporter Alex Tabbitt. Alex spent the day at a polling place in Des Moines where voters also shared their concerns about Donald Trump's age.
Do you think President Trump is too old to be president?
I think so, although, age is something that some people 80 are still very confident of things, and others are losing it. But I think he's losing it. I think he's too old. I think we need younger people.
Back with me, MS Now Chief Data Reporter Ali Velshi at the big board. Ali, what are the latest results you're seeing?
All right, so let's take a look at Iowa. We don't have, it's not closed yet, so we don't have any vote right now, but it is going to be an interesting Senate Democratic race here between Josh Turek and Zach Walz, both fairly well known in this state, but this is not a throwaway. This is one of these things where Turek is polling ahead. We'll see how this goes later in the night, but it's worth paying attention to because it is on the map as one of the roads on the path to victory in the Senate. So we're going to watch it very closely, but I want to take you back to 2024 in Iowa just to tell you what we're looking at. We saw, Alex, in Des Moines. Des Moines is one of the 5 counties we're looking at that Kamala Harris, it's Polk County, beat Donald Trump in 2024, 55-44. Above Des Moines is Story County, similar situation, 10-point lead with Kamala Harris. Black Hawk County, very much closer in 2024, 50 to almost 49. Cedar Rapids is in Lynn County, again, about an 8-point lead there. And then Johnson County, Iowa City, where it was a very, very substantial lead. So when we get the numbers out of Iowa, we're going to be paying very, very close attention to it. I want to go back to the Democratic primaries in New Jersey right now because we've got a lot of results in right now. The one we're looking most closely at, Tom Kaine's district, is District 7 in New Jersey. 35% of the vote in. Rebecca Bennett is the lead candidate right now in a very, very comfortable lead she's got over Tina Shaw and Brian Varela. So we're watching that closely to see when that gets determined. In District 11, this is the one that had that very contentious primary some time ago. Tom Malinowski was thought to be in the lead, and then AIPAC threw money into another candidate, ended up defeating Tom Malinowski and getting Analilia Mejia, who definitely is not the candidate AIPAC wanted. She is now going to be moving ahead. She's got, I mean, this is decided, 43% of the vote in. She's at 82% there. And we're watching some other races in here. Rob Menendez, of course, has been determined to be the candidate in District 8. And again, we're watching District 12 very, very carefully. Adam Hamawi, who was credited as the doctor who helped Senator Tammy Duckworth when she was injured, he's 47% of the vote in. He's got a slight lead over Brad Cohen. It's not a very, very substantial lead at the moment, so we're going to be watching this one very closely. But that's the stuff that we've got in from New Jersey right now. We'll watch Iowa, and of course, you and I are going to be up very late into the night and early tomorrow morning watching California.
Yeah, and that Iowa race, I mean, are we expecting, obviously California, we know we're going to be up very late. The Iowa race, my recollection is that we're going to probably get results tonight, right? In that primary, they're going to be taking on Ashley Hinton, who's going to be almost certainly going to be the nominee on the Republican side for that Joni Ernst seat. And that's, you know, because you don't have a recumbent, you don't have an incumbent. You know, it's low on the tier in terms of the most likely to flip, but it's in that kind of Ohio, Texas, Iowa possible stretch.
So I would say this, if on November 3rd, Democrats are having a good night across the country, Iowa's certainly in play. It's nobody's, it's not the thing people are thinking is the first choice on the play to getting the 4 seats that the Democrats need to take over the Senate. But the fact that we're discussing it is intriguing.
Zach Walz, as you noted before, with that incredible viral speech, he's been a state legislator and politician. Josh Turek, people should Google during this commercial break, Google his first ad for the primary, because it is a great ad and will teach you something about Josh Turek, who's a Paralympian, among many others.
That's right. This is a very interesting race.
All right, Ali Velshi, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Still to come, Senator Tim Kaine on Donald Trump's boredom with the war he started. Next. Donald Trump's war against Iran is now entering its 4th month. There is no end in sight, despite the news alerts you may be getting about an impending deal. There is also, quite importantly, no authorization for war from Congress. And today, as Secretary of State Marco Rubio testified on Capitol Hill for the first time since the war started, one senator also reminded him the White House hasn't even shared its legal justification, just shared it, for the war with Congress yet.
By not sharing the legal opinion with the Article I oversight branch, you give us the opinion that there's something in there you don't want us to see. Could you use your influence as the president's chief national security advisor, Secretary of State, NSA, to get the administration to share the Iran war legal opinion with Congress?
Well, look, first of all, obviously the Department of State does not develop the legal opinion. That's
But
an
you're
Office
the
of
national,
Legal Counsel.
you're the chief
So
national.
I think what you're asking is why haven't the Office of Legal Counsel provided it? They don't work for the National Security
I'm
Council.
actually
They don't work for
asking-
me.
The Senator Democrat Tim Kaine of Virginia sits in the Senate Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committee, and he joins me now. Well, it's very funny when this administration tries to kind of give a little bit of like a bureaucratic answer about whose turf is whose on the day that they appointed Bill Pulte to run the intelligence apparatus of the entire United States. I take it you were not very satisfied with that answer from the Secretary of State.
No, Chris, that's fair. I mean, Marco Rubio is the first person since Henry Kissinger to be both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. And for him to say, well, I don't really have any control over what these other guys do, that was sort of a feckless response. The administration shared with us the legal rationale for the boat strikes in the Pacific and Caribbean. I found them deeply, deeply unsatisfactory, but at least they shared them with us in classified. And they shared with us the legal rationale for the Maduro removal operation. Again, I didn't find it persuasive, but they shared with us. But on the Iran war, 92 days in, they have refused to share with any members of Congress. So what are they hiding? Either there's some equivocation about the legal justification, or maybe some qualification like you can do this but don't bomb schools and bridges and civilian infrastructure. Or maybe there's some factual assertions like this war will be over in 2 days, or the Iranians will never try to close the Straits of Hormuz. They're clearly hiding something. And the fact that they won't share it with Congress and the Republicans seem fine with that, that shouldn't be fine with the American public.
You just mentioned the boat strikes in the Caribbean, which is a story that we've covered here, but has sort of gone on, I think, in the background, frankly. And there's reporting we've just crossed the threshold of 200 individuals that we have killed. I think lots of independent legal observers would say that the U.S. government has murdered them. They were civilians who were killed, not in self-defense, under no plausible account of war. And you raised something today in the hearing I thought was interesting, that your understanding is that the targeting criteria does not even require the presence of narcotics on the boats. Is that correct?
Yeah, Chris, I've been briefed on the targeting criteria, and sadly, I can't describe it here because it's all been in classified. But I think I can describe things that aren't targeting criteria. And Senator Paul, a Republican, and I today in the hearing pointed out that to strike these boats and kill all on board, the U.S. military does not have to have any evidence that there's narcotics on the boats. And they do not have to have any evidence that anyone on the boats is armed. So for some reason, the presence of narcotics and whether the folks on board are armed is irrelevant to the question of whether we can sink the boats and kill everybody on board. And the Secretary of State did not challenge me on that. And he couldn't, because I've been briefed consistently on this since September 2nd. Again, I'm sorry that I can't describe what the targeting criteria are. They've only done this in classified to try to put a gag rule on senators. But I think I'm not prohibited from describing my shock and surprise about what the targeting criteria are not. The administration could say, we'll only strike boats if we have some proof that there's narcotics on board. We'll only strike boats if these folks are armed. They intentionally chose not to include those as targeting criteria, and that raises massive human rights and legal questions.
As we speak tonight, we have reports of American, I believe, naval forces stopping or targeting ships around Iran in the Strait of Hormuz. We also have reports of Iran retaliating with fire aimed at Kuwaiti targets. This is not the first time, obviously, this sort of thing has happened amidst a ceasefire. Donald Trump says he doesn't care if there's a deal, and also that he's kind of bored of the whole thing. And I've kind of thrown my hands up at trying to cover where we are, because it's like Groundhog Day. Do you have a sense of where we are you privy to any information that would make more sense of where things are than we are?
Well, first, Secretary Rubio, the thing he said today that might have been the most surprising is, oh, no, we're not still at war. That almost got him laughed out of the room. We have U.S. troops deployed there. There's firing between the U.S. and Iran and U.S. positions in the region and other nations in the region and commercial shipping, but they're trying to pretend that it's not a war. There's a ceasefire that is holding to some degree. At least we're not in a maximum bombardment campaign. But here's where we are, Chris. The ceasefire that's partial has to be made complete. We have to complete it, extend it, and then President Trump has to find an off-ramp for this illegal, unnecessary, and unwise war that's costing American troops and it's punishing American families with gas prices, food prices, and so much else.
Yep. All right, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, thank you for your time tonight, sir. That is all in on this big Tuesday night. The election coverage continues all night long. I'll be back at 10 p.m. Eastern with Rachel and the whole crew for more of our special MS Now election coverage. First, the briefing with Jen Psaki starts right after this.
All right, it's election night in America, everyone, and this is a very big one. We are following multiple primary elections being held in 6 states across the country. And in just 1 hour, the one and only Rachel Maddow is going to be here to lead tonight's special coverage of all of those races. In just a few minutes, Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff is going to join me to weigh in on tonight's results and talk about the path for Democrats to retake the Senate as he wages a re-election campaign of his own in Georgia. He is one of the most targeted Democrats in the country. Now, I should tell you right off the bat that polls have just closed in the state of Iowa, and we already have something kind of somewhat of a call to make. We'll keep you updated on all of these. And this isn't exactly a surprise, I should just say, because he was running unopposed for the nomination, but it's still important because the Democratic candidate for governor will be Rob Sand, and he is currently the Iowa State Auditor. And this is an important one. Take a look at his face because you're going to see him a lot out there, because it is the best chance Democrats have had in a very long time to win back the governor's mansion in Iowa. And we're going to learn much more over the course of the next hour about who Rob Sand will face in the November election. We'll see if we know tonight, but we're going to bring you all of the updates on that. I'm also going to talk with Rob Sand himself about the race ahead and the list of his potential opponents later this hour. We're also awaiting the first results from another hotly contested Iowa race, one that is going to decide who will be the Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate in that state. There are 2 rising stars in the Democratic Party who are vying for that nomination, State Representative Josh Turek and State Senator Zach Wahls. And among the many paths for Democrats to retake the U.S. Senate, and there are a number of paths, one could very well run through Iowa, which is kind of a remarkable statement, given Trump won the state in the last 3 presidential elections. But it turns out Iowans don't necessarily love skyrocketing fuel costs. Farmers don't love tariffs. People in rural communities want access to health care. So there's a lot one of these candidates could run on come November. We will see what we learn about that race tonight. Of course, we're also keeping a close eye on the state of California, where voters are still voting in a number of key races. Now, reliably blue California isn't exactly a bellwether state. Don't worry, not claiming it is. But the results there tonight could tell us a lot about where the country is headed right now, where the energy is in the party and in the country. Remember back in 2024, California saw one of the biggest swings toward Donald Trump of any state in the country. Joe Biden won by 29 points in 2020, but Kamala Harris won by just 20 points, despite being the former senator from that state. So that was, of course, a 9-point shift toward Trump in just 4 years, including a big shift among Latino voters. And tonight, we will see. It could tell us if the momentum is swinging back in Democrats' direction in some parts of California. Now, of course, the biggest race of the night in California is the race for governor, which was thrown into, let's call it a temporary state of uncertainty in April by the exit of California Congressman Eric Swalwell following multiple allegations of sexual misconduct, which he denies. Now, in California, candidates from both parties compete in the same primary, with the top 2 vote getters advancing to the general election. And since Swalwell's exit, 3 candidates have risen to the top of a massive, massive field. Former Health Secretary and California State AG Xavier Becerra, who is running on a lot of things, but I would note he did sue Donald Trump 122 times as California's top attorney during the first Trump administration. Billionaire environmentalist and former presidential candidate Tom Steyer is also in the top tier as far as polling goes. And former Fox News weekend host and conspiracy theorist Steve Hilton is also in there. Again, just 2 candidates are going to advance to a runoff, so we'll see what we learn. We're seeing a similar dynamic in the race for Los Angeles mayor, where incumbent Mayor Karen Bass is facing 2 challengers, City Councilwoman Nithya Raman, who is running to the left of Bass, and Spencer Pratt. Yes, the guy from the MTV reality show The Hills. If you know, you know. If it was your generation, you know who's running to Bass's right. That race is technically nonpartisan, but Donald Trump has thrown his support behind Spencer Pratt, which feels quite on brand. I mean, he already put one washed-up MTV star in charge of the Department of Transportation, so I guess why not back another to lead America's second-largest city? Why not? Now, tonight is also the first statewide election in California since the Golden State redrew its congressional maps to counter the Trump-backed redistricting effort in red states. Democrats are hoping to win back 5 seats. And we'll be watching to learn which candidates will be competing in those new districts come November. There are also at least 3 Democratic incumbents over the age of 70 facing primary challenges from younger candidates, part of the broader battle over generational change that we've seen in many other states occurring within the party. We're also watching the race to see who will succeed House Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi when she leaves Congress at the end of this year. So there's a lot tonight happening in the state of California. But before we get there, we're continuing to watch results come in from New Jersey, where polls have been closed for more than an hour, watching a number of important races in that state as well, including the Democratic primary in New Jersey's 7th district. And that's the swing district currently represented by Republican Congressman Tom Kean. Now, Congressman Kean has not appeared in public for nearly 90 days. Nearly 90 days. That's back to March. He's missed nearly 100 votes in Congress, but despite his unexplained absence, he is somehow running for re-election in a district Trump won by just 1 percentage point in 2024. So a lot of potential there, to put it mildly. So like I said, there's a lot to get to tonight. We're going to get to all of it. We're going to cover all of it very closely. And I want to get straight to MS Now senior data reporter Ali Velshi, who is at the big board, in the flesh, in the room. It's so good to see you. All right, Ali, we've got some very early numbers out of Iowa. I know we've got some results out of New Jersey. Where do you want to start?
Let's start in Iowa. Very, very few votes in right now, less than 1%. Josh Turek is polling as the candidate that's more likely to win tonight, but very early for us to be able to determine that. That said, he's got a 204 vote lead in one county only that's reporting. That's Carroll County. Well, we just got vote in from Des Moines County as I was talking to you. Wow, 17% of the vote already in Des Moines, and Josh Turek is leading 70-30 with a vote lead of 2,800 right there. We're looking for a vote in Polk County, in Story County right above it. That's another Democratic stronghold. In Lynn County, where Grand Rapids is, in Johnson County, and then up here in Blackhawk County. There are basically 5 counties we're going to be paying a lot of attention to. We only have vote from those 2 right now, so I'm going to come back to that in a little while. Let's go to New Jersey. By the way, we've got primaries tonight we're covering in New Jersey, in Iowa, in South Dakota, in Montana, New Mexico, and then, as you mentioned, California. Let's go to New Jersey, where we do have numbers in Tom Kean's district, New Jersey 7. We do have a decision by us that Rebecca Bennett, with 48% of the vote in, we're pretty confident she is now going to advance to be the candidate who's going to face off against Tom Kean in the 7th district. Tina Shaw running trying to run a strong campaign against her, but down by about 27 votes. There are a few other calls that have already been made in New Jersey. In the 11th, this is Analilia Mejia. You'll remember this is one of those races where Tom Malinowski was running to get his seat back. AIPAC got involved, backed another candidate, and ended up with Analilia Mejia, who really is not the candidate they wanted. She is now getting an opportunity to run one more time. Now, we'll go back to New Jersey 7 for a second and just show you how it's breaking down by county. If you look at Rebecca Bennett's lead, she's leading in every single county, right? This is a sort of a very traditional way of winning an election. I want to take you down to District 12 with 53% of the vote in, and Adam Hamawi is in the lead lead right now. It's not that big a lead, 24-20 against Brad Cohen. But look at this, how this shapes out county by county. Everybody he's running against, all his major opponents have been officials, mayors. They've held office in one county or another. So if you go down to Mercer County, Trenton, the person leading there was the former mayor of Trenton, but Adam Hamawi is in the number 2 spot. In Middlesex County, Brad Cohen is winning there. He's the mayor of East Bergen. He's in the first place spot. Adam Hamawi is in the second place spot. Somerset County, Chanel Robinson is a county executive there. She's beating him in Somerset County, and in Union County, the mayor of a city in Union County has got 47% of the vote. Adam Hamawi only has 14.7% of the vote. He's not winning in a single county, and yet he's in the lead to win the election. He's coming in second, and he's splitting everyone's vote. So we're going to watch that one very, very closely. And by the time I talk to you next, I'll have more numbers in from Iowa.
Ali Velshi, I'm here to keep you hydrated if you need a tissue, if you need a snack. I'm so grateful, we all are, for all of the data you are following and covering. Okay, I want to bring in Emma Snow's Jacob Soboroff, who's at a polling location in Los Angeles. Jacob, one of my favorite things about election nights is seeing you interact with voters in line and around polling places. So you've been there all day. Walk us through what you've been seeing and hearing.
It's one of my favorite things, too, Jen, as I probably am very, very obvious about. I really enjoy doing this. So maybe I'll just real quick, because I said I would say I him before he went inside. This is Cam. Cam is at the very front of the line before you go inside. Cam, you got governor's race and a mayoral race here. Have you thought about who you're going to go for yet before you go in?
Yeah, I think I'm going to vote for Matt Mahan for governor.
The mayor of San Jose.
Yeah, mayor of San Jose. I like his issues on housing. I think he'd be a good governor.
Okay, and how about for mayor?
For mayor, I'm leaning Spencer Pratt right now.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, no kidding, man. It's nice to meet you. All right, so that's the first Spencer Pratt voter I've talked to, but there's a lot of Spencer Pratt voters that are out and about. You changed from last time I talked to you.
Yeah. It's a close call for me.
Between him and
Nithya Raman.
Nithya Raman. Okay, so it's very interesting. Good to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Between Spencer Pratt and Nithya Raman, we're talking about the mayor of Los Angeles, the second largest city in the United States of America, and Karen Bass, the incumbent mayor, is facing some headwinds here, Jen, because of her response to a lot of local issues on the ground here. Affordability, just like it is all across the country, is a big issue. And both Spencer Pratt and Nithya Raman are making a good stand. The governor's race is also happening here. I want to show you, people are excited about this contest, and it's not just consequential for Los Angeles, but it's also consequential for the United States of America because of the way that the congressional maps have been redrawn here. And it could be indicative of what happens in the midterm elections come the November general election once that runoff happens. I had said I was going to say hello to you when I met you earlier. Remind me of your name again?
My name is Erin.
Erin, what are the big issues, Erin, that are bringing you out to vote in this primary election in early June in the summer of 2026?
I mean, you really have to start small, right? If you're going to make any changes in government, you really have to start local.
And do you live here in downtown Los Angeles?
I do.
And so when you look around downtown, or I don't know, what do you do for a living?
I work in apparel production.
In apparel production. It's a big industry here. And in fact, the ICE raids started at some of those garment factories here in downtown Los Angeles about a year ago. Talk to me about your life and sort of how you see what you want from our elected leaders, and if you thought about who you're voting for governor and mayor.
I'm very blessed and grateful that I wasn't affected by the ICE raids, but I have seen it tear through a lot of communities, and yeah, I mean, it's just a really sad situation.
Gavin Newsom has been a big foil for Donald Trump, particularly as it relates to that issue, but so many others. Do you know who you want to succeed him yet for governor before you go inside?
I do, but I think I want to hold on to...
Erin doesn't want to tell me, Jen. I don't mind. It's nice to meet you, Erin. The secret ballot. Everybody's entitled to it. Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you. And I just want to say hello to this gentleman I met earlier, because while he is in Los Angeles, he's a New York Knicks fan, and he's waiting online with this mini voter down here who is a very patient person. Who's this, and who are you?
My name's William Donovan, and this is my son, Nolan.
You say Noah?
Nolan.
Nolan, okay. What are the big issues that have brought you out to wait on this line here with Nolan today?
You know, it's just important to vote in the midterm elections, especially this time where we see a president who's trying to defunct every single issue that has been set for many years. And I just want to see change specifically in LA, although I haven't been impacted by the ICE raised. We continue to see that in the streets. We continue to see so many of our rights being taken away. And I just want to make sure that, my voice is heard.
At the front of the line, I talked to somebody who was telling me that they might vote for Spencer Pratt, the former reality star, for mayor of LA. I could just see in your face what you think about that.
Absolutely not. He's a joke. I didn't like him back in the day when we watched him on TV, and I don't like him now.
Who are you going to go for?
Definitely going to go for...
Karen Bass, the mayor, or Nithya Raman?
I think we're going to go for Raman.
The progressive challenger. It'll be an interesting thing to see, but it's so great to meet you. Thank you. Go next tomorrow.
Yes.
My son will appreciate that too, and I'll let you keep going. It's nice to meet you. Jen, it's going to be an exciting night here. When Rachel picks up the coverage at 10 o'clock, I'll remain here at the polling place. We're going to watch till the last votes are counted here, and then Javier Becerra, is in the lead now, the former HHS secretary in those polls. Tom Steyer, the billionaire environmental activist, amongst other issues, also contending. Steve Hilton, the Republican endorsed by Donald Trump, trying to get into the top 2 in our nonpartisan primary system here in California. Whoever wins, both for governor and mayor of LA, is going to play a huge role in standing up to this administration in this deep, deep blue city and a deep blue state, as you know very well.
It's a hugely important race to watch. Jacob, we're also grateful you're there. Looking forward to talking to you again. Thank you again for joining us. Joining me now, I've been so excited about this panel. I love talking to people who've been in the arena, run races. These 2 people have run races more than almost anybody else. At the table with me is Addisu Dinisi, who I've known for a very long time. He's the former campaign manager for Gavin Newsom's 2018 campaign for governor and Cory Booker's 2020 campaign for president. Also with us is Jim Messina, former campaign manager for Barack Obama's 2020 presidential campaign. Jim just published a multi-part series, so if you're there, you're kind of freaking about election results, you're watching us, is the thing to check out. It's called Myth Busting Before the Midterms on his Substack called the Messina Memo. Sorry about that, the Messina Memo. Okay. All right, there's a lot to get to. I just gave a very brief overview of what I'm keeping an eye on tonight. Jim, let me start with you. What are you watching for tonight?
Iowa. Iowa is a place where you and Addisu and I watch Barack Obama make history. It's a sacred place to all the Obama folks. It's a place where no Democrat has won in a statewide federal election since Barack Obama in 2012. And there's incredibly competitive race for governor, for Senate, and 3 swing House seats. It is proof that while people might think this is a red state, Donald Trump's economy has hit farmland America really, really hard. And this state is in play for a Senate race, a governor's race, and 3 House races. Control of the House could be done in Iowa. So tonight we will get a whole bunch of answers. And I am all Iowa fired up tonight, Jen.
I love it. Okay, first of all, we all have worked in Iowa. I think I met you in Iowa. That's what we go back.
23 years ago today. Oh,
okay, yeah. There we go. Okay, so there is a competitive Senate primary. We don't know the outcome. There's 2 really compelling people running in that Senate primary. The Rob Stand is going to be the nominee. Super compelling. What are you watching for there?
Yeah, I mean, exact same as Jim. I think it is considered a red state. Obviously, since 2012, it has been electing Republicans, but I think it might be the canary in the coal mine for what red states in the sort of prairie populism era might become. And Rob Sand, I think, in particular, really is the shining light of that. So I think we have a chance to win all of those races, the governor's race, the Senate race, all 3 of those competitive House races. And that will certainly put Iowa on the map in 2028, but also I think show the rest of the country that we can compete in these, particularly these Midwestern and prairie states where we may have lost some ground over the last couple of years, but the tide is changing largely because of what Donald Trump
It is. I mean, politics is about what is happening in the moment. So I think people say, Trump won there 3 times, there's no way. But it's all about things like the cost of health care and the impact on farming and tariffs and fertilizer. Okay, let's talk about California because there are so many things to watch there. We don't have results yet. We're not going to have them yet. I think people tuning in now are probably trying to figure out how to watch these results and what we may or may not know when. So let me ask you about one piece I've heard a little bit about, which is this potential of a red mirage, early numbers that come in and make it look like Steve Hilton or others are surging way ahead. How should we be digesting the results tonight as they come in?
I think that's definitely going to happen. I think Republicans tend to vote early, and we've seen in the turnout that we've seen and how votes have been coming in. Democrats, myself included, I voted on Saturday. and I'm a great voter. I usually vote early, but a lot of Democrats held their ballots this time. You're going to see a huge late Democratic vote, and those votes are the last ones counted, especially ones that come in today and over the course of the next week. So the vote is going to skew Republican tonight in the initial count, the 801s as we call them, the ones that come out right after polls close. Also in the votes that get counted tonight, E-Day, Election Day, more Republicans vote in person than by mail. And then you're going to see this huge blue wave come as the night goes on. And honestly, I hate to say it to your viewers, but over the course of the next couple days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you will see a huge Democratic move. So do not, honestly, we may not know the results of the election tonight. There's a lot we can talk about what we should be watching, but I think the biggest thing I would say is caveat emptor, like do not believe that the numbers that you see at 801 or even at 11 o'clock tonight or before you go to bed are going to be the final number.
It is. I mean, have some caffeine, but brace yourself because we may not know all of the outcome. Jim, let me ask you, because I think if you don't live in California, you're wondering, why do I care about what's happening in California? You should care in part because it's a state where it matters who's governor and that there's going to be a big check on the Trump administration, but also because there are a bunch of potential flips in the House here in California. The Democrats are hoping to pick up 5 seats from Prop 50. Give us a sense of kind of what you're watching. What do you expect? What's important coming out of tonight? And do you expect they're going to get to the 5, knowing what we know now?
I do. I mean, Gavin Newsom, Adisu's old boss, put his political future on the line to pass Prop 50 and say that, we're going to stand up to what Donald Trump is doing. And they made a map that gives Democrats shots at as much as 5 seats and potentially more. I think we'll know a lot tonight about who the nominees are. I think, that's an incredibly interesting thing. In my opinion, there's nothing more important than getting one of the 2 houses of Congress to slow Donald Trump down. And that's probably the U.S. House of Representatives. And so in a place where literally, Jen, there's only 15 to 20 seats that you and I could consider toss-ups. Well, at least 5 of them are in California. So California is also the state, as you said earlier, that kind of went a little Trumpy and really surprised people. And why the Republicans currently have the House of Representatives, because they overperformed in New York and overperformed in California. And so we're going to get a canary in a coal mine moment for the House tonight and over the next couple of days to see how real this moment for the Democrats are to win House races they absolutely have to have.
Adisu, Jim, I can't tell you how grateful I am. I was texting you earlier today. I'm going to keep texting you through the course of the night. I hope you don't mind. Thank you both for being here. Okay, we are keeping a close eye on the results out of those hugely important races in Iowa we've been talking about. Jim is very excited about them. So is Adisu. We're counting down to polls closing in California. And on this big election night, I really think you're going to want to hear from my next guest, who says the kind of wave that's building only comes along once in a generation. Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff is standing by, and he joins me next. When it comes to the Democrats trying to retake the Senate this year, there are 2 different magic numbers to keep in mind, and you probably know these already, but I keep them in mind a lot. The first is the number 4. That is the number of seats Democrats need to flip in November to take control of the Senate. Of course, doesn't matter where those seats come from, it just has to be 4. Well, voters in 35 states will have a Senate race on their ballot this year. Only about a dozen of those races are really competitive on some level, and there's kind of a range. But luckily, that still gives Democrats lots of potential states to flip because 9 of those seats are currently occupied by Republicans. And again, Democrats only need to flip 4 of them. That's the first magic number. Democrats need to flip 4 seats. The second magic number is 2, because while Democrats need to flip seats to get a majority, they also need to defend 2 seats that are seen as vulnerable, Michigan and Georgia. And while Michigan's Democratic primary is still months away, the Democratic nominee in Georgia is incumbent Senator Jon Ossoff, who's already drawing crowds like the one you can see here, 1,500 people in Atlanta on Sunday. And he's not actually sounding all that vulnerable.
In Atlanta, a wave is building. The kind of wave that comes once a generation. When people have been pushed too far and they decide all at once, all together, that enough is enough. So let's give them a united Georgia. Let's save the country again. Let's make sure they hear it all the way down at Mar-a-Lago that Georgia will bow to no king. Thank you. God bless you. Let's get to work.
And joining me now is Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia. I just gave an overview of the path to the Senate majority. It certainly goes through Georgia. They are going to throw everything up against you, bazillions of dollars, attack ads, everything that you can imagine and you're already prepared for. I've also heard you say a wave is building that only comes along once in a generation. So tell us why you feel that way.
Jen, thank you for having me. Great to be back. And a wave is building because this administration, through its corruption and incompetence, is driving prices to record highs while the first family enriches itself to the tune of billions of dollars. The nation has been plunged into reckless war. The disastrous tariffs are crushing small businesses and farmers. And people see that this administration's abuses of power require us to restore checks and balances. But I need to give everybody out there a reality check about this Senate race in Georgia. Please hear me when I say this, folks. There is no way to regain the Senate majority without winning this Senate race in Georgia. I am the only Democratic senator running for re-election in a state that Donald Trump won. I expect the National Republican Party will spend hundreds of millions of dollars to try to unseat me, and Georgia is a very, very tough battleground state. So I'm asking folks to log on to electjon.com, electjon.com, and chip in right now to support my campaign so we can build an absolutely unprecedented turnout effort and protect voting rights where right there in Fulton County, you saw Tulsi Gabbard come down and oversee a ballot raid. This White House has its sights set on Georgia, and I need the help to win.
I don't want to minimize any race, certainly not Georgia, and I think no race is won until November, which everybody should know out there. There's a lot left to happen. You've made corruption, I just played a clip of you, you've made it, we've talked about it a number of times too, such a focus on the campaign trail. You weave in the impact on people's lives and why it matters so much. One area of potential corruption we've seen the Trump administration kind of back off on, sort of, kind of, I want to know what you think, is the $1.8 billion slush fund. We obviously saw a huge amount of pushback from Democrats, a lot of unease from Republicans for good reason. And we saw very quick action in the courts. Today, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said they're no longer pursuing it. What do you make of that, and do you believe him?
I don't trust Todd Blanche, and Todd Blanche should resign. This entire thing is a disgrace. What's extraordinary about how this relates to the Senate race in Georgia is that you've heard even some Senate Republicans criticize this and say they won't vote for it. But both of my Trump puppet opponents in their debate last weekend enthusiastically endorsed this and said that they would support this $1.8 billion slush fund for Jan 6th foot soldiers and the president's cronies. People need to understand it's not just that the Senate race in Georgia is the most competitive and crucial in the country. I'm running against two Trump puppet MAGA fanatics who are pro-war, pro-tariff, pro-cutting your health care, pro-Jeffrey Epstein Memorial Ballroom, pro-slush fund for Jan 6th insurrectionists. And again, you want to help me? It's electjon.com.
One of the reasons it really matters who is in the Senate and who controls the Senate is who is confirmed as nominees and people in the cabinet. And Trump did something, I mean, we should never be really shocked, but today he put forward Bill Pulte, of the head of the FHFA, as the acting director of national intelligence. He obviously has no experience in national security. His only, I guess, qualification in Trump world is that he has just been looking for dirt on Trump's political opponents. You're a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. You care about who's in the cabinet. How concerned are you about this?
Look, of all of the appointments, literally, Jen, of all of the appointments to date, many of them catastrophic, this one is the most disturbing. And we cannot let the fact that Bill Pulte is not a household name prevent us from informing the public about the danger posed by his appointment as Director of National Intelligence. This guy has no background in intelligence. He is a thug and a hack who abused his power at the top of the Federal Housing Finance Authority to dig through federal records improperly for any information he could find about the president's political adversaries, and then try to get them prosecuted by Pam Bondi's corrupt Department of Justice. Having somebody like that at the head of the intelligence community is a recipe for unprecedented abuses of the vast powers of our intelligence apparatus. And, you know, I saw Senator Thune even today said we don't need a weaponized intelligence community. Everybody needs to be getting Republican senators on record in opposition to this dangerous, disastrous appointment. This is going to require some of the most intense Senate oversight in Senate history if we have a political hack like this atop of the intelligence community. And again, you saw Tulsi Gabbard. She came down to Georgia, the nation's spy chief, and oversaw a ballot raid as the top intelligence officer in the United States. It is deeply disturbing that with the election upcoming, they've put Bill Pulte, a political hack, at the head of the intelligence community. It speaks to the intensity with which we're going to have to defend voting rights. And again, folks can help me defend voting rights at electjohn.com.
To your point of just the forces against Democrats and what they're up against in Georgia and other states across the country, there has been this effort, of course, to redraw maps and continue to redraw maps. There is a piece of good news tonight, I would note, you may or may not have already seen. Oh, it's bad news. I'm sorry. We just got the news. Apologies. We just got a ruling from the Supreme Court in just the last few minutes. A 6-3 decision was just going to let Alabama's new congressional map stand. This is definitely bad news. Sorry, this news just broke. It means Alabama is going to lose one of its 2 majority black districts. It's a reminder of the forces, of course, as I said, working against Democrats. What's your message? I think people can hear these things and they feel defeated. They feel deflated. They feel like the forces are against them. What is your message to voters as they head out to November who are outraged and feel depressed by this sort of ruling?
Jen, in Georgia, these attacks on voting rights are provoking a defiant backlash. They are motivating people to turn out to the polls in defiance of these attacks on the franchise. 61 years after President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, as if they'd been lying in wait since the ink from his pen dried. As soon as Section 2 of the VRA was eviscerated, they've leapt into action to try to remove black elected officials, not by defeating them at the polls, but by manipulating maps to dilute minority power. But the fact that they're launching these attacks in the American South, the fact that they launched that ballot raid in Fulton County, in Congressman John Lewis' congressional district, is awakening in people a determination to vote like they have never voted before, to rebuke these abuses and defend voting rights.
You've raised Bill Pulte a number of times. I agree people need to know who he is, and you were very clear-eyed about the impact of what Tulsi Gabbard already did. I should note for people, an acting cabinet member can serve for 210 days, and that means that Pulte could be the acting DNI right through the election, into election season, right through the election. What do you think he's capable of? I mean, what worries you the most, if left to his own devices, that he could do in a state like Georgia?
Look, the powers of the U.S. intelligence community, the NSA and our other agencies, are vast, and a determined partisan actor at the top of the intelligence community who wants to weaponize those authorities can do tremendous damage. That is why, again, I view this as the single most dangerous and the single most alarming appointment that Donald Trump has made to date. This is, as I see it, a 5-alarm fire. And we're going to need to make sure we're prepared to protect whistleblowers, brave whistleblowers from within the intelligence community who come to the United States Senate. I sit on the Intelligence Committee, and inform us of just how he is abusing his powers, because I expect him to. Why else would you put somebody with 0 experience in intelligence, but a track record as a political loyalist, a personal loyalist to the president, who's already abused the power that's been granted him? He's abused his power at the FHFA to go after sitting members of Congress, and now he's going to sit atop of our intelligence apparatus. It's deeply disturbing. It's deeply dangerous. It's unacceptable. Those of us who sit on the intelligence oversight committees are really going to have our work cut out for us over the next few months.
And we're going to keep covering it and following it and making sure people know who Bill Pulte is. Senator Jon Ossoff, thank you as always for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay, the results are really starting to pour in right now, and we're going to head back to Ali Velshi at the big board after a very quick break. We'll be right back. I told you we'd follow them closely. We're back and following the results on an incredibly busy election night. Polls closed in Iowa about 40 minutes ago, and Ali Velshi is back at the big board for us. So, Ali, how are things looking in the Democratic primary in Iowa, and anything else new we've learned?
Yeah, in fact, I'm just waiting to see a check mark here, but I believe we're just about ready to make a call on Josh Turek. Only 24% of the vote is in it. This is in the Democratic Senate primary competition. Josh Turek versus Zach Wahls. Two very impressive candidates in and of themselves. Worth learning about both of them, but it's 65-34 right now with 24% of the vote in. Again, I'm expecting that there's going to be a check mark there any moment. We're still waiting for a little bit of interesting vote to come in. This is Polk County. This is the most populous county in the state, 97% in, and it's 63-36. We have not seen vote in from Story County or from Cedar Rapids, Lynn County, or below that Johnson County. So there's still more vote to come in, but that looks like it's determined. Now, in the Democratic primary, I'm sorry, let's go to the gubernatorial primary. As you've been talking about, Rob Sand is the uncontested candidate for the governor of Iowa. Again, these are open positions. There's an open Senate seat and an open gubernatorial position. This hasn't happened since the 60s. You're going to be talking to Rob Sand in a moment. The question is who he's running against. His main candidate, the person thought to be his main opponent, is Randy Feenstra. But Randy Feenstra has been pretty much for the whole night running behind Zach Lahn, 37% to 33%, but we're nowhere close to being able to make this call. Only 19% of the vote is in, and when you look at where the vote is coming from, it might indicate that Randy Feenstra is going to gain more of the outstanding vote than Zach Lahn is. But as you know, there's something very interesting that happens in Iowa. If there are two candidates, one has to get more than 35%. Well, if there's two candidates, one's going to have to get more than 50% to win. If there are more than two candidates, one has to get 35% in order to win. So you could be a candidate in the lead with 34%, and you then don't win outright tonight. This goes to a convention, which is going to be held on June 13th. So again, at this point, we don't know where this is going to go because there's still a lot more vote to come in on the Republican side in Iowa. So we'll watch that very closely. And I just want you to I want to give you a quick update in the Democratic primaries in New Jersey because we have just been able to call District 12 in New Jersey with 70% of the vote in for Adam Hawaii. He is going to be representing the Democrats there. He has defeated Brad Cohen to do that. In New Jersey 7, this is Tom Kane's district. We've called that for Rebecca Bennett. She'll be the candidate there. Analilia Mejia will be the candidate in 11. She won this election in a special election very recently. Rob Menendez, we know that he's going to be the candidate in District 8. And there's one more that LaMonica McIver with 71% of the vote in has been declared the candidate in District 10. So most of the vote in New Jersey is in at this point.
Ali Velshi, thank you. There's some drama involved in that Iowa Republican side. I'm sure we will get into. There's lots of fun drama. I know we're going to be checking back a lot in the night. Thank you so much again for being here and giving us an update. Okay, I've got the person standing by, Ali just mentioned, this person, who's got the hopes of Iowa Democrats now pretty much resting squarely on his shoulders. Tonight, Rob Sand is officially the Democratic nominee for governor. Very strong at the top of the ticket, and he joins me next. Okay, everyone, election results are coming in from the great state of Iowa, where polls officially closed in just the last hour. And the Associated Press can now project, and Ali Velshi was predicting this, that Josh Turek has won the Democratic primary for Iowa Senate in what will be a hugely consequential race come November. And joining me now is the Democratic nominee in another big race in Iowa. Tonight, Rob Sand officially became the Democratic nominee for governor in Iowa. So now you know who kind of your running mate is, running on the Senate side. Congrats, of course, on the official race call. The race, I suppose, begins now. The Republican side is messy, to say the least. Randy Feenstra was endorsed by Donald Trump. He's not hit 35% of the vote. We'll see what happens. You have to get 35% in order to move forward as the nominee. Does it matter to you who the nominee is on the other side, or how does it impact how you run your race?
You know, Jen, number one, thanks for having me. Number two, no. I mean, we have had 10 years of one-party control at the State House in Iowa. That's really unusual for us. And we've hit the point where we've had a 3-year average of 48th for personal income growth. We are number one for cancer growth. And they're busy up there figuring out how to make it harder for the state auditor's office to find misspent money. I think people in Iowa are ready to rotate the crops. I don't really think it matters who the other side nominates. I think people are fed up. They've had enough. And, you know, I've been around. They've elected me twice. I do 100 public town halls every year. You can come to compliment me or to criticize me, but they're actually open to the public. I think that means a lot to people, and I think we've got a great shot to win this thing in November regardless.
You've won statewide, to your point. I think there is, and we've been talking about this through the course of the show, this sort of fear of Democrats to get too excited about what could happen in a state like Iowa, where Donald Trump won 3 times, and that obviously impacts how people perceive a state. I mean, he won Iowa by 13 points in the 2024 presidential election. Now, a Morning Consult poll released just last month found that his approval is underwater by 7 points in the state, which people should note. There are things like tariffs, the price of gas, fertilizer. You can name all of them better than I can. What do you attribute his loss of support in the state to? And what do you tell people who feel skeptical that you and Josh Turk could win in Iowa?
Sure. You know, look, I mean, you did name them, Jen. Tariffs have been terrible for Iowa. I think that's one of the reasons that we've got a great shot here. You've got elected officials and candidates in the other political party in Iowa whose only job is to represent the state of Iowa, and they're running around trying to serve one man, trying to make one man happy, trying to tell Iowans that these tariffs that are crushing our economy are actually about to, you know, bring over a new golden age. I don't think people in the state of Iowa fall for that very easily. And they see through it pretty easily, too. I think that's one of the huge opportunities that we have. And you're right, the war in Iran has increased fertilizer prices even worse than they were already. But again, I think there's a lot of state issues that a lot of folks don't necessarily read as much about. We have a school vouchers program that has next to no oversight and next to no rules for how it operates. There's no income limit, so we have a $1.3 billion annual budget deficit, and yet we're giving hundreds of millions of dollars every year to the wealthiest Iowans to send their kids to private schools when they were going to do it anyway. I just think a lot of folks in the state are looking around going, what are you guys doing up there? Why are you doing this? I think that's one of the reasons that we're going to have competitive races up and down the ballot. For folks that want to learn more about ours, it's robsand.com.
We only have about 30 seconds left, so I'm just going to ask you to tell us, as people are getting to know who Josh Turk is, what should people know about him?
Josh, man, inspiring personal story. Born with spina bifida, had to go through tons of surgeries as a kid, becomes a wheelchair gold medal winner for Team USA basketball. Really just a good and a decent guy who has had to work really hard to win in a district that President Trump won. I think he's got a good shot.
Rob Sand, I think when people look at Iowa, they think, well, Democrats haven't won there in a long time, but they hear you talking about things. It makes sense. It's very common sense. Thanks for being here with us. Thanks for telling us a little bit about the guy who's now the nominee. I'm really grateful to you. Thanks again.
Happy to do it. Thanks.
Okay, we've got to take a quick break, but Rachel Maddow is standing by to pick up our special coverage, and we'll be right back. That does it from me this hour. Our special coverage night, election night coverage, I should say, with Rachel Maddow at the helm starts right now. Hey, Rachel.
Hey, Jen. Thank you so much. I know we'll be seeing more of you over the course of the evening. Thank you, my friend. Thanks to you at home for joining us for our live coverage as results roll in from primary elections around the country. 6 states are holding primaries today: Iowa, Montana, New Mexico, New Jersey, South Dakota, and, of course, California. Here at the MS Now mothership, it is me minus my voice. Sorry.
Oh, it's there.
It's there. It's just a little scratchy. My friend Chris Hayes, Simone Sanders Townsend, Alicia Menendez, and Michael Steele. Great to have you all here. Lawrence O'Donnell took one for the team. He is beaming his coverage to us tonight from the great city of Los Angeles, which is no hardship at all. Our friend Jen Psaki will be back with us later on this evening, along with Stephanie Ruhle. And of course, we've got Ali Velshi at the big board to talk us through the results as they come in all through the night. We're going to be talking about those results themselves and what they will mean for the country when it comes to control in Washington after November, when it comes to the balance of power across the country. I think it's worth keeping in mind that in times as radical as these, yes, Congress matters, yes, the Senate matters, but yes, control of the states matters too. It matters as a check and a counterbalance and occasionally an opponent to what we have coming out of Washington and the Trump administration. Tonight, we are following a number of developing stories very much about how radical this moment is in our country right now. Just in the last hour, we, for example, have had important breaking news out of the United States Supreme Court. The court's conservative majority has granted an emergency request from the state of Alabama to discriminate against black voters, to allow the state of Alabama to use a Republican-backed map that deliberately eliminates one of the state's 2 majority black districts. This will, in terms of electoral politics, this will almost certainly gain Republicans another House seat. It will further reduce black representation in Congress. This, of course, comes in the wake of the High Court gutting the Voting Rights Act. Sonia Sotomayor penned a pretty intense dissent to this decision tonight. I'll just read a little bit of it to you. She says, "Before the court are 2 paths. Down one lies an orderly election held under a tried and tested congressional map that protects black Alabamians' right to vote and with which all voters, elections officials, and candidates alike are familiar. Down the other lies a chaotic election held under a never-before-used congressional map that intentionally discriminates against black Alabamians, that Alabama adopted in unashamed defiance of a prior court order directly affirmed by this court, and that will require officials, listen to this, will require officials to change the voter registrations of hundreds of thousands of voters in just days at best, a task that Alabama previously represented would take months. The majority chooses the second path and disregards both democratic values and the rule of law. I respectfully dissent." Again, that news out of the Supreme Court just within the last hour, and that is not only the only breaking news that we are following tonight just in the past hour. The storied, venerable journalist and 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelley has tonight been fired by the newly revamped CBS News. Yesterday, Mr. Pelley reportedly lambasted the new leadership at 60 Minutes and at CBS for effectively killing the long-running news magazine after firing scores of staff members and its leadership and after accusations of meddling in the show's editorial process. For that, directly as a result of that confrontation at a staff meeting, Mr. Pelley appears to have been fired by the network for cause. MS Now has obtained the letter sent to Mr. Pelley this evening from the newly appointed executive producer at 60 Minutes. He's just been installed there as part of the sort of bald-faced Hungarian-style oligarchic takeover of that news organization. This newly appointed executive wrote to Scott Pelley, and the imbalance in terms of journalistic experience there is remarkable, given what the contents of the letter is. The contents of the letter are. The letter says in part to Scott Pelley, quote, "Yesterday you hijacked my first meeting with staff to disparage me, my qualifications, and my intentions with remarkable incivility and contempt." The letter from the newly appointed executive producer goes on to say that Mr. Pelley was terminated for cause, effective immediately. This is an election special, and we have so much election news to cover tonight.
All right, that's why we're.
But I'm just going to call an audible here. Can we just talk about this for a second? I just love to get your guys' reaction to some of this news tonight, Chris.
I'm going to swing at one of these 2 pitches, which is the Supreme Court decision, which I've really had a few moments today of being kind of brought up short and speechless. And I'm trying to describe, I mean, one of the things with all these cases is the procedural ins and outs can get very complicated. It's like this map, and then it got stopped in the lower court. But I think the best way to understand it is this is so cynical and depraved and insane. It's the court's equivalent of nominating Bill Pulte to run the intelligence apparatus, in that when you do that, you're not pretending anymore. When you say Bill Pulte is going to run the intelligence agencies, yes, you're like, you've lost. You're no longer trying to be like, well, no, this is a bald-faced attempt to manipulate the levels of power for corrupt ends. And what the court has done tonight, and again, I could spend a long time going through the procedural stances of this, but fundamentally what happened was this map, this court rejected in 2023. They said this is not permissible.
And why was it not permissible?
Because it intentionally discriminates against black voters. And then they overturned their previous jurisprudence in the Calais with Louisiana's map, but they said, they made a point of saying the majority, we are not overturning our decision in Milligan, which is the Alabama case. That still stands. And then tonight, after a lower court said, whatever the Voting Rights Act says, this is unconstitutional. It is constitutionally impermissible to discriminate against black people in this country, these United States, with our Constitution. And the court said, no, actually, you can't.
Yeah.
And it's a truly shocking, and the response from lawyers, again, you hitting new lows. See prior Bill Pulte comments.
Yeah.
Even people who are pretty hardened about this court find this particular decision tonight from this court like truly
and just to be clear, I mean, I don't want to interview you about this, Chris, but just to be clear, I feel like when we have these voting rights discussions, a lot of it, we have to sort of nod to the fact that there are euphemisms, that there are pretexts, that there are explanations for these things that make these maps sort of not what they obviously are, according to the way these things are being discussed in court. In this case, the United States Supreme Court said this map intentionally disenfranchises black Americans on the basis of the fact that they are black.
Correct.
This is not like a partisan effort. This is not like an effort to make prettier districts. Like, this is literally about making sure that black people can't exercise political power because they're black people. And that's their own finding. And on the basis of that finding, with that being their own understanding of this court, they said, go ahead and do it.
This court. Yeah, it's really very difficult. And the last thing I would just say is that, like, I do think it is election night, and it just highlights the stakes across the board, because it will be the United States Senate that will or will not confirm judges for the rest of Donald Trump's term in office, including Supreme Court justices, should they choose to retire, having the Republicans secure a majority. And finding a 28-year-old version of Sam Alito that makes Sam Alito look like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So, all of that, everything that we see right now is on the table tonight in these elections.
Simone.
Well, elections, also this matters. This ties to November, to our election night story as well tonight, because state legislatures, not only are they the place in America where America's policy is made, but elections are administered by the states in this country, not the White House or the federal government, as the president would like to pretend, frankly. And so who is in the state legislature matters. What the state legislatures are willing to do or not to do, what they're willing to defend and not defend, what the attorney general of those states and the governors are willing to do, it matters. I've been saying this a lot. I will repeat it again. I believe we are in another post-Reconstruction moment in America. After Reconstruction collapsed in 1877, 1878, because it didn't happen overnight, okay? Okay, like it's not happening overnight right now. The 14th and 15th Amendments, they were never repealed, okay? They were still on the books. The Constitution was still on the books after Reconstruction. But the promise of democracy for millions of Americans were not. It took 88 years from the collapse of Reconstruction to the Voting Rights Act of 1965 for even a semblance of those rights to be restored in this country. And so what is happening right now happened after Reconstruction. The courts aided and abetted in dismantling the promises of Reconstruction. There are a slew of Supreme Court cases post-1878 that basically said, oh, poll taxes, it's okay because they say it's not about race. Oh, citizen tax? Oh, this is political. It's not about race. So on and so forth. Just like now, the map that they said was racist, that was about race in 2023, all of a sudden it's just partisan, so we're going to let it go. So we don't have another 88 years. And that is why tonight, the people going to the polls all across the country, that is why this November matters.
Yeah. I will also just say, on the free press part of this, I made a crack there talking about the Scott Pelley news as being sort of a Hungarian oligarchic style takeover of the media. And I mean that sort of as a joke, but also sort of deadly serious. I mean, there's nobody who is more acutely attuned to the value of a free press than those who are trying to take it away. And when the president baldly says, I am going to use the power of the state in order to get the media that I want, and he lines up oligarchic friends in order to do that for him, it's just, again, there's no pretense. There's no saying this is for any other reason. There's nothing else going on at CBS News other than what we can see is happening at CBS News. And I don't know where Scott Pelley will land. Frankly, I hope he lands right here.
Yeah.
I hope he stays on. I hope he's on TV tomorrow. Right. And I hope that everybody in journalism and everybody who values a free press figures out ways to outmaneuver the people who are trying to take the free press from us. But it is a fully joined fight at this point, and there's no, I just don't think there's any I think any pretense that anything else was happening here is over.
I take Cecilia Vega, who recently departed, 60 Minutes, at her word when she says that her experience in that newsroom was one of censorship. I take her at her word when she says that in her stories they were trying to inject political bias. So I am with you 100% on the fact that there is nothing to litigate here. It is very clear what they are doing. The mandate for Bari Weiss is not excellent journalism or editorial discretion or to turn this into a new product. No, it's to grease the wheels for her corporate overlords. And let's be honest, stars across the board when it comes to that objective. I do want to make sure to tie this in, though, to the Sotomayor dissent that you read, because I'm taken by her frame that this is a two roads diverged moment. Yeah. And that the court could have chosen not to go in the direction of chaos, but they distinctly chose chaos because in this moment, chaos is the point. And where I think that ties into the elections that we're all watching tonight is you have Democratic voters going out there and saying, I can't deal with the chaos anymore. Donald Trump campaigned on this idea that he was going to make America safe and secure and he was going to get rid of the chaos. It has been nothing but chaos. And so they are trying to figure out who is the fighter who can actually win in any of these number of races, who can restore order that is being dismantled at every stage of our government.
So I'm going to channel my colleague Simone for a moment. In 1896,
Come on, Michael Steele.
there was a little case called Plessy versus Ferguson, in which the Supreme Court ruled that segregation was okay under our Constitution, under the 14th Amendment. Put a pin in that. Now you sort of draw the lines to all the periods in our history, the battles that took down, ultimately, Reconstruction, the battles that raised up the Civil Rights era, and now the battles that are taking that down. And how are they taking it down? They're taking it down systematically. They're taking it down through media, they're taking it down through government, and they're taking it down through culture. What's the end game? The end game was not Obergefell, it was not the abortion decision, it's the amendments of the Constitution. The First Amendment is a pain in this Supreme Court's butt, and a whole lot of other folks out there. But you know which one really bites the hardest? The 14th Amendment. That's the end game. And they're setting the trap that they're laying down, this court, laying down to, at some point with the case that is being germinated right now, somewhere in the south of this great country, that's going to make its way through, in which they say to the American people, guess what? All the rights you thought you had under the 14th Amendment no longer carry. How does that tie into Scott Pelley? Because it ties back to the First Amendment. It ties back to the only industry, business, interest in this country that is mentioned in the Constitution. And the moment you can deconstruct that and take that piece out by controlling the press and controlling the narratives, guess what stories they're going to write when they take out the 14th Amendment? And the people wind up losing across the board. And that's why nights like this, to Simone's point, is important, to all of the points made, because the voters need to understand what's really happening here and what November is just not a midterm election. It is probably a terminal election.
This is, I mean, everybody always says, every election is like, the most important. Like once you're in the throes of this sort of a revolution, we are in the throes of a revolution to change our form of government and to get rid of our Constitution. And when that is actively happening and progressing every day, the next Democratic shot you get might be the only one.
Yeah, you got it.
Right.
You get. Our friend Lawrence O'Donnell is watching us from the air-conditioned confines of a Los Angeles studio, about which we are not at all jealous. Lawrence, I want you to weigh in here.
Yeah, Rachel, it's impossible, of course, to be smarter about what the Supreme Court has done than what Justice Sonia Sotomayor has said in her dissent, and I'm glad you read a piece of it. It's 17 pages long. It's a 6-3 decision. Obviously, all of the justices appointed by Republican presidents were in the majority. All of the justices appointed by Democratic presidents in this 3-person majority. And here is how Justice Sotomayor ended her 17-page dissent. She said, "Weeks ago, I warned that vacating the district court's injunction in these cases would, quote, unleash chaos and confuse voters," end quote. Nevertheless, the court forged ahead. Now the court is squarely faced with the record of the turmoil it has caused and the harm it has wrought. Yet just as Alabama doubled down on racial discrimination, the court today doubles down on chaos. Because I choose to defend the rule of law and the right of all Alabamians to participate equally in democracy, I respectfully dissent. And to just get a word in here about Scott Pelley's dissent about what's happening at CBS News and 60 Minutes, it comes in what is the year that it is marking the 50th anniversary of the film Network, for which Paddy Chayefsky won the Oscar for Best Screenplay. And Paddy Chayefsky's screenplay about network news at the time was considered realistic up to a point, and then it felt like it really went over a line into a zone that could never happen. And now we have seen it all happen. And what Scott Pelley did in that room, live, on the spot, was write the real world movie script of Network. His lines could not have been more perfect. They couldn't have landed any better. It's a scene, as you read it, as you hear some of the dialogue from that room, that is just stunning. And he stood there and he stood against the billionaire takeover, not just of CBS News, but of more than half of show business now, which David Ellison is trying to do and is on his way to doing with Donald Trump's approval. And because the Ellison family is seeking Donald Trump's approval, that is why Scott Pelley had to be fired. Donald Trump fired Scott Pelley through the Ellison family because the Ellison family wants to run as much of show business as Donald Trump will allow them to run while violating antitrust laws in the process.
And guys like Trump the world over do this every single chance they can, because it is in their interest to not only consolidate media in the hands of people who are going to be loyal to them, but also to massively enrich those people and create power centers in those people that control both a ton of money, a ton of resources, a ton of, cornering the market in significant portions of American culture and media. So then those people will use their power that he has given them to keep him in power potentially indefinitely. I mean, that is the cycle that these guys tried to build. And it is a cycle that works like a conveyor belt for their own power and their own wealth until the American people step in and cut that conveyor belt off. And that is what election nights are for. And that is what we are here for tonight. So we have a ton of news already coming in from the primary elections tonight in 6 different states. In Iowa tonight, Democrat Josh Turek has just won the nomination for the United States Senate. Ali Velshi is going to join us from the big board with the numbers on that, plus so much more. Jacob Soboroff is going to join us from downtown Los Angeles, where voters are lined up at the polls. California's crucial and unpredictable governor's race, driving turnout there. We got election news ahead from California, Iowa, Montana, New Jersey, South Dakota, and New Mexico. It's a big news night. It's going to be a big night for democracy, too. We'll be here with you for all of it. Stay with us. So, as we were saying, back to tonight's elections. Polls closed just moments ago in Montana, where a U.S. Senate seat and a U.S. House seat are both open after Republican incumbent Senator Steve Daines and Republican incumbent Congressman Ryan Zinke both decided they weren't going to run for re-election. There's been some unexpected sort of cross-partisan drama in that Senate race. We're going to get to that shortly, including potential national implications for that. In all of these states, there's drama and there's stakes in all of these elections. Obviously, the spotlight has been shining hottest on California. Polls close in under an hour in California. Nearly 1 in 8 Americans call California home, so California elections are always a big deal in their own right. But the stakes of tonight's California elections are high, really, for the whole country. Voters in California will decide tonight who the 2 candidates will be in November for California governor. California's current governor, Gavin Newsom, has been an electoral juggernaut in that state, but he is term limited out. The question of who will replace him has been nutty. It has been like a soap opera crossed with a true crime thriller, crossed with a particularly poorly planned reality show. There are literally 61 names on the ballot for California governor. Seriously. Tonight, we're going to find out which 2 of those 61 people will face off in November to become California's next governor, to lead the nation's most populous state, the 4th largest economy in the world, through the second half of Donald Trump's presidential term. We've already had in this race a Democratic frontrunner who dropped out in the midst of a lurid and shocking scandal. We have had a billionaire flooding the airwaves with a record-breaking deluge of ads. He has spent over $200 million on himself in this race. There's a Republican candidate who inexplicably seized hundreds of thousands of ballots from last year's elections in the county where he is sheriff. And there is the stranger-than-fiction, weird, and much discussed possibility, the sort of nightmare scenario for Democrats, that it could theoretically end up being 2 Republicans advancing to the runoff in deep blue California. Now, realistically, that seems almost impossible. But frankly, the phrase almost impossible is the caption under the photo of this time in American political history right now, so don't knock it. California will also play a major role in determining who controls Congress come January. Last year, California voters responded to gerrymandering in red state Texas by approving a new congressional map in California that gives Democrats the edge in 5 more seats. That has thrown a major monkey wrench in the careers of the incumbent Republicans who held those seats. We're going to be watching those primaries and a bunch of other hotly contested ones across the state. California has 52 congressional seats. There's also the wild Los Angeles mayor's race, where the incumbent mayor of the nation's 2nd largest city is facing a challenge from a man who is famous for being a villain on a defunct reality TV show that most people have never watched. Plus another challenge from a Democratic Socialist city councilor who has drawn comparisons to New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani. So there's a lot happening just in California tonight, but California is only part of it. In Iowa, we already know the Democratic nominee for governor. He ran unopposed. He is Iowa State Auditor Rob Sand. Rob Sand cleared the Democratic field. He had been running a bang-up gubernatorial campaign. Democrats think that with him, they've got a real shot to win back the Iowa governor's race. Rob Sand will be the Democratic nominee for governor in Iowa. Iowa Democrats have been fired up about their chances in the state's open U.S. Senate race as well. With 2 very strong candidates fighting it right down to the wire, we can report tonight that Iowa State Representative and Paralympic gold medalist Josh Turek has won the Democratic nomination for that Iowa Senate race tonight. In the great state of New Jersey, there's lots of interesting primaries, but the one everybody's a little obsessed with is New Jersey's 7th. This is the swingiest district in the whole state. There technically is a Republican incumbent congressman there, and he technically is running unopposed in his Republican primary tonight. But the man is also invisible. He has not been seen in months. Reporters are literally checking the hospitals in New Jersey looking for him, staking out his house. Nobody can find him. Tonight, Tom Kean, unopposed, will hold the Republican nomination for his own seat. And now we have learned which Democrat will try to unseat that invisible man this fall. Her name is Rebecca Bennett. She's a former Navy helicopter pilot. She has won the Democratic primary to face off against Tom Kean this fall in New Jersey. We're also watching results from New Mexico. Former Democratic Congresswoman and U.S. Interior Secretary Deb Haaland has clinched the Democratic nomination for governor in New Mexico. If she wins in November, I should tell you she will be the first female Native American governor in U.S. history. There's so much to get to. I could go on and on and on. Ali Velshi, let's get this going. We're watching for Turek's victory speech in Iowa any minute. We'll go to that as soon as it starts. But in the meantime, tell us what you got.
He's a great talker, and I want to go to Iowa and tell you about, a little bit about what's going on here. 60% of the vote in. Josh Turek is going to be the nominee as we move forward. But as a result of that, the fact that Josh Turek is thought of as competitive as a potential winner of an open Senate seat, as an open gubernatorial seat and an open Senate seat there, first time since the 1960s that's happened. A more interesting thing has happened, and that is when you look at the Senate races to watch, the potential path for Democrats to take control of the Senate, if that were to happen in November, we have just moved Iowa from likely Republican to lean Republican.
Oh, wow.
It's a matter of degrees, but the point is there is now that much more of a path potentially for Democrats to take the Senate. Now, there's a discussion here about whether Maine, which is a toss-up, has become a little more competitive than it was a week ago for Republicans. But the bottom line is Iowa is now in that race for the reasons that we were just describing to you. You also just talked about Rob Sand in the governor's race in Iowa. He is uncontested. In the GOP race against him, Randy Feenstra, who was thought to be the person who would win this with 61% of the vote, is running behind Zach Lon. This is interesting because this is one of those states that has an unusual rule that if more than two people are running, one of them has to get 35% of the vote. As you can see, two candidates are very close to 35% of the vote. If they don't get 35% of the vote, it's not like a southern state where it goes to a runoff. They have a meeting of the Republican conference on June 13th, and they pick a winner. So that becomes an interesting thing that we're watching for.
Ali,
the bottom line is Iowa's very much in play.
Let me jump in here. Let's go to Des Moines right now, where Josh Turek is just about to give his speech. Just speak.
I first want to congratulate Zach Walz on running a strong campaign. He and I, yes, absolutely. He and I just spoke on the phone. Zach has been an exceptional representative for his district and a true public servant for the people of Iowa. I am grateful for this primary. It has made me a stronger candidate. To Zach supporters, I know I was not your first choice, but I ask each and every one of you to join our campaign to push for change. Together, we are going to build an Iowa that people move to, not away from. In my travels through the state, wherever I go, I hear the same things. Iowans are hurting. Families are struggling just to keep food on the table and a roof above their heads. Farmers are living in constant fear of foreclosure. We are in a senseless Middle East war that is driving up gas prices here at home. Our rural communities are disappearing. Hospitals and schools are closing here. Our public schools are falling behind. Iowa is now nearly dead last for economic growth, personal income growth, OBGYNs, mental health providers. We have closed 250 more healthcare clinics than we've opened in the last 15 years. We have a cancer crisis, a water quality crisis. This is not the Iowa that I grew up in. This is not the state that we all love. But I am feeling hope here in Iowa for the first time in a very long time. And this is because Iowans know that we need change. The status quo is not working. We need a fighter for the people, not for the billionaires, large corporations, and political donors. And this is our chance to change this state. My story is truly the American dream. In no other country on earth could someone born into a working class family from Council Bluffs, Iowa, who went to the Goodwill, shared clothes, had the wrong color lunch ticket, who was born with my disability of spina bifida due to my father's exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam, who had 21 surgeries before the age of 12, be able to represent the United States in 4 Paralympic Games and bring home 2 gold medals and represent their community in the legislature. Only in America is that possible. And I am running for the United States Senate to protect that American dream for future generations. I got into politics just 4 years ago because while working in healthcare, I saw firsthand how the privatization of Medicaid was leading to a 1,000% increase in denials and delays for people with conditions like muscular dystrophy and Lou Gehrig's disease. It was fundamentally wrong, and I decided to do something about it. So I ran in Red Western Iowa to represent my hometown in the Iowa legislature. I wanted to be a voice for the voiceless, for the Iowans who cannot afford a lobbyist. I won that first race by dragging my wheelchair upstairs every single day to talk to voters, regardless of party next to their name. Neighbor by neighbor, Iowan by Iowan, I won them over. I won that first race by just 6 votes. So never doubt that your vote matters. It does, and it can be all of the difference. I won that race because there's more that unites us than divided us. They trusted I knew what they were going through because I had lived it myself. I've had to fight my whole life, and this is what is needed in DC. People who have gone through real struggle, who know what it's like to not have enough, who know what a gallon of gas costs, who have had to put groceries on a credit card. We have enough millionaires in DC looking out for billionaires. We need real people in Washington who have felt the consequences of a broken system, because when you have gone through real struggle, you will have a different level of empathy and a different level of fight. And this is what we need in DC, fighters for the people, and that is what I will be in the United States Senate. Not someone like Ashley Hinton, who has voted to take health care away from 110,000 Iowans just to give tax breaks to billionaires. She voted to make health care more expensive, so 119,000 Iowans saw their health care premiums double and even triple. She backed cuts to veterans' health care. She voted 4 times in favor of the tariffs that have decimated our farmers. She supported raising the age for Social Security. She even sponsored a total abortion ban, even as 93% of Iowans say it goes too far. Ashley Hinton is a multimillionaire who has increased her wealth by up to 10 times since she got to Congress, and refused to support a ban on members of Congress and their families from owning and trading stock. She has taken over $3.6 million in corporate PAC money. She does not represent Iowa and does not represent our values. And tonight, Iowa, we have had enough. So my promise to you, I am going to the United States Senate to fight for a livable wage, to drive private equity out of housing and healthcare, to fight for affordable and accessible healthcare and prescription drugs for all Americans, because I believe that healthcare is a human right. To make it so doctors decide care, not insurance companies. So people like my sister are never told again, sorry, you can't get a PET scan, you don't have enough cancer yet. To fight for women's reproductive freedom. To fight for our public schools, because I believe public money belongs in public schools. To address the cancer crisis that we're having in this state, the water quality crisis that we have in this state, because every single Iowan deserves drinkable water, and to have billionaires pay their fair share. To fight for campaign finance reform and transparency, to fight to get dark money out of politics, because we can have oligarchy or we can have democracy, but we cannot have both, and enough is enough.
That is Josh Turek. He is the Democratic nominee for Senate in the great state of Iowa, giving his victory speech, having dispatched Zach Wahls in what was a very hard-fought primary.
Very much so. And look, this is a place, and Michael Steele and I have had a spirited conversation about this throughout the week about Iowa. This is a place where Democrats think they can make inroads. Yes, in the Senate, but also in the governor's mansion when it comes to Rob Sand, who is currently the only Democrat that has been consistently elected statewide and re-elected, frankly, so much so that in the state legislature they've tried to take his power away from being able to actually do his job, which is investigating waste, fraud, and abuse. What is so interesting to me about Turk is, first of all, Iowa was a place previously that was actually very competitive for Democrats. Harkin, the last Democratic senator, represented the state for about 30 years. The Harkin steak fry, if anybody's ever been, named after him. And so Turk does have some inroads. What he was talking about specifically, the cancer rates, the billionaires, right? That's language we've heard. Other places linking the corruption to people's economic livelihoods or non-livelihoods, frankly, given what's going on. But in Iowa, cancer is truly on the rise. It's one of the only states where it is increasing, and there have been a number of reports that have come out recently that have talked about it's linked to agricultural factors. Right. So the pesticides, so the farmers are also a piece of this as well. So Iowa is a place to watch. I think that this is a place where Democrats actually can make some inroads this November.
Outgoing Governor Kim Reynolds, lowest approval rating of any governor in the nation. And that's because Iowa's 49th rank in economic growth over the last few years. Like, they're having a very rough go of it there. The change versus status quo is a very strong argument for someone who's running to take on the party that has been running things.
Iowa farmers have a great case to make against Republicans at every level of government with Donald Trump at the head of that party right now. It's going to be fascinating to watch how the Democratic Party sort of tries this on in Iowa. This is the best shot they've had at those two big races in a long time. All right, as more results come in from these half a dozen states that have been voting today and tonight, we're going to keep the updates coming. Our countdown continues to the final poll closing of this very election night. And very busy election night in California coming up at the top of the hour. We're going to get a live report from California right after this quick break. Stay with us. All right, you've been waiting for it. Now it's going to happen. Here it comes. Let's bring in Jacob Soboroff, the host of the forthcoming show, Connect on MS Now, which premieres June 13th. Jacob naturally is in a black T-shirt at a polling location in Los Angeles. Jacob, it's great to see you. Where are you at? How's it going? Tell us what you're seeing.
I'm blushing in a polling place, Rachel. Thank you very much. State law here I'm going to have to do my golf announcer voice for just a second because state law in California is very nice to allow us into the polling places, as is the county of Los Angeles, the largest election jurisdiction in the country. It is very busy here, I have to tell you. And even though people can vote by mail, and you put up that ballot earlier, I want to show you what it looks like to people like me who got one in the mail. 61 gubernatorial candidates. This is page number 1, starting with Barack D. Obama Shaw, not the Barack Obama that you know, all the way to the other side, all the way down to Mohammed Arif, the final candidate on the ballot. Every one of us here who is registered to vote, the 20 or so million people in this state got one of those ballots. But many people are waiting until the very last second. As you can see through the windows here in downtown Los Angeles, Graham Street and Fifth Avenue, the Millennium Biltmore Hotel. It is an extraordinary thing to see. But why don't we go outside and we can talk a little bit about why this is such a consequential election. I do want to check just how long you've been waiting. You've been waiting for about an hour so far?
30, 40 minutes.
Oh, not that bad. Okay, good. What's your name?
Alessio.
Alessio Jacob, nice to meet you. You're almost there.
Yeah.
Okay, good luck, everybody. So, Rachel, these people have been waiting for quite some time. They have decided to show up and vote in person on this Tuesday at the beginning of the summer here. Oh, locked door. I have to go ahead, please. I'm going to have to go through this summer in June. And this is such a consequential day here in Los Angeles and in California, Rachel, not just because we have the gubernatorial election here to replace Gavin Newsom, of course, and not just to watch this highly contested mayoral election with Karen Bass, who is facing, as you said, it is crazy to say, but Spencer Pratt, the former reality star, and Nithya Raman, the progressive city council person here in Los Angeles. But remember, we were all on the air for Proposition 50 as I walked the line here to show you how far this goes. When Gavin Newsom, in his own words, was fighting fire with fire in order to try to push back against some of the redistricting efforts that were tipping the scales in favor of Republicans all across the country. Now tonight, with this consequential news from the Supreme Court out of Alabama, with the First Amendment on the line, with the firing of Scott Pelley from 60 Minutes, I mean, this is a great night to vote no matter what you care about in Los Angeles or in California. And I do think that some of the big issues here, not just that we have a nonpartisan top two vote getter primary system, and we could see perhaps two Democrats emerge. Javier Becerra, of course, the former HHS secretary, congressman from this area, state legislator from this area, very well known, and also Tom Steyer. But this Steve Hilton guy who was endorsed, a Fox News contributor by the President of the United States. The scenario in which we may see two Republicans emerge doesn't seem very likely at this hour. And talking to people in Los Angeles certainly doesn't seem like that at all. Maybe I can, as I walk the line, I'm getting the no eye contact from certain people, which I know very well means they do not want to say hello. Can I just say hi to you? We're live on MS Now. What's your name?
Ebony.
Ebony Jacob. It's nice to meet you. They said 30 or 40 minutes to wait in line. What brings you out on the last possible day, at the last possible minute, with 12 minutes until polls close to cast your ballot today?
Ooh, I just want my voice heard. I actually waited till the last minute. I usually am well researched, and now I'm like reading last minute on each candidate. But actually, the city sent me like a statistic that told me that I was like in the top percentage of voters.
So you vote regularly?
I vote regularly, and I didn't want to mess that percentage up, so I was like, okay.
You're back. So Ebony's back. The gubernatorial election here in California is to replace Gavin Newsom. He has been a top foil to the President of the United States on these very streets on issues like the ICE raids that happened a year ago this summer. What are you hoping for in the next governor of California?
Ooh. I don't know. I'm barely reading into it. I'm sorry.
All right, so Ebony's just getting ready, which is actually, you got 30 minutes to do it. You got a mayoral race as well. Don't forget to read. She's on the phone. She's probably phoning a friend. I'll let you do that, Ebony. It's nice to meet you. Thank you very, very much. Every one of these people, Rachel, has a little bit of time until polls close in order to get inside. The thing that strikes me is that I talked to you, I talked to Chris Hayes, who I know is sitting there with you a year ago right now, as Donald Trump's troops rolled into the city of Los Angeles, these very streets, and to conduct the largest mass deportation campaign in American history. But subsequent to that, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, you covered it better than anyone else, have come out to these same streets to protest this administration. And in large part, the leaders of this city and this state have done so as well. And so that's why this is going to be a definitive night for people here in California. We will see who the candidates that emerge to become potentially those 5 additional Democratic pickups in the House are, in addition to the mayor and the governor here. It's going to be a very exciting night, and we're going to be out here till the polls close at the very end.
Jacob, very, very well done. You walk backwards while speaking better than anybody in the business.
I'll keep going.
And you are very good at persuading people to talk to you while you do it. We'll be back with you on the other side of this, Jacob. Thank you so much.
No
Jacob
eye contact.
Sobel
Okay.
is live
No
for
eye
us
contact.
in downtown LA. One thing to know, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, one of the things you should know about this in very, very important election day in California is that California counts in a way that isn't all that intuitive, and it has important implications in terms of when we're going to know the important outcomes that we're waiting for tonight. Ali Velshi is going to walk us through some of that as we get close to polls closing in less than 10 minutes now in California. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Less than 5 minutes until polls close in the great state of California. Let's bring in Ali Velshi at the board to look at how we expect the counting to go and what people should understand about the way these elections are being conducted in California tonight. Ali.
So the great thing about California is they make it easy to vote. It's very easy to vote. Voter participation is high. People can get ballots. Everybody gets mailed one. You don't need any excuses. And generally, people vote in advance. This race has been thrown into some upheaval. So you see people like the ones that Jacob were talking to who haven't really thought this through. You really have to study. It's hard to vote in California. It's easy to vote, but it's hard to make decisions. Few things that are different from places that other states. All candidates, regardless of party, appear on the same ballot. So those people in the line are Republicans and Democrats. Everybody appears on the same ballot, whatever party you're on. So you're voting for the top 2 people to advance. That means it could be 2 Republicans or 2 Democrats or 2 independents. The top 2 vote getters advance to the general election. So in some cases, you will see 2 Democrats advancing in the same district. Could be two Democrats advancing in the race for governor, which means that you'll end up with 1 for sure at the end, or you may get a combination of 2, a Republican and a Democrat. In some instances in California, you'll also get 2 Democrats. 89% of California's population in the 2024 primary was cast before Election Day. We don't have current data on this, but we believe the number this time to be lower because Eric Swalwell dropped out of the race. It cast a lot of voters into some confusion about who their next choice was going to be. And as a result, a number of people who would have cast their ballot early held on to it. Again, you saw Jacob talking to them in the line. So this is important to remember. And then this is the most important thing, Rachel, I'm going to get you a gallon of orange juice to get through tonight, because in the 2024 primary, only 52% of voters of total votes were counted by the time the sun rose in the east.
Wow.
And because a lot of the voters are voting late in this particular case, you can also postmark your ballot by today. There's a bit of a special process. You have to get a particular type of stamp to do it. But if you get your vote stamped by today, it's the course of 8 or 9 days before that may be counted. So in fact, we'll have some good sense of trend in the next few hours. There may be a lot of votes that are not determined before the sun rises.
Okay, it's good. It's good to keep in mind. I mean, I should welcome our friends Stephanie Ruhle and Jen Psaki, who have joined us here at the table. I feel like, as a native Californian, I'm allowed to say this, which is California is a different country in the sense that it factors into national politics in huge and important ways, and all sorts of important national figures have come out of California. But when you're looking at the state from outside the state's borders, they do things differently. It's effectively an inward-directed state in terms of what their issues are and what types of campaigns their candidates run, because they can afford to be, because they're so gigantic. But it means that on nights like this, when we're looking at big national implications out of California, you actually do kind of have to teach the whole country what California's like in order to understand what these votes are going to mean. Tonight, I do think we should prepare people, Jen, for the fact that we may not get results in a lot of these races. We may not even know who the top two are going to the general election for a matter of weeks in a number of these campaigns.
That's exactly right. I was just talking to Adisu Demisi, who ran Governor Newsom's campaign back in 2018, and he basically said, everybody brace yourself. I hate to tell you this, everybody watching, because you'll learn some things tonight, but you may not know all of the things, and you probably won't know. And the other thing he warned a little bit about is what he called, we talked about a little bit, the red mirage, which is votes come in a bit, and they come in at different paces, and sometimes there's a huge influx of Democratic votes later in the process. We'll see how it goes tonight. But because the primary was in such a crazy state of disarray a little bit because of Eric Swalwell's allegations, it means a lot of people voted late, and it means things could be late. We'll see if that ends up being the case, but he said kind of pace yourself. But the reason to pay attention is not just the governor's race, but because there are 5 races Democrats hope to flip in the state. We may not know who those Democrats are, but that's more than Democrats need to win back the House. So stay tuned, not just tonight, but the coming days and weeks, I guess, is what everybody is saying here.
We're about 12 seconds out from the poll closing time in California. We don't expect, I don't think, to know anything right at poll closing because of the way they count. But as of right now, polls are closed in California. Here's a look at the California gubernatorial primary. As we mentioned, there are literally more than 60 names on the ballot, but these 3 men are considered to be the top 3 contenders: Democrat Xavier Becerra, Democrat Tom Steyer, and Republican Steve Hilton, who has President Donald Trump's endorsement. Lots of other high-profile people in this race, though. Chad Bianco is the controversial Riverside County Sheriff. Katie Porter, firebrand former Democratic Congresswoman. Matt Mahan, who is the Democratic mayor of San Jose. Antonio Villaraigosa, former mayor of Los Angeles. Lots and lots of candidates in this race. Again, the top 2 will proceed to the runoff in November. The California's largest city is Los Angeles, the 2nd largest city in the country. Karen Bass is the incumbent mayor. This is technically a nonpartisan race. Karen Bass was a longtime former Democratic congresswoman from California before becoming LA's mayor. She's facing a challenge from the right, from the reality TV guy, Spencer Pratt, and from the left, from Nithya Raman, from the city council. And so, again, we don't have results to tell you about at this point. Polls have just closed. But those are 2 races to control very big parts of this country. 1 in 8 Americans is a Californian. It's the 4th largest economy in the world. The governor of California is a huge potential counterpoint to a president of the United States in terms of political and economic power. And Los Angeles is one of the great international capitals, second largest city in this country after only New York. And it has politics that will curl your hair any day of the week, but particularly right now. Steph.
Jen's talking about the red barrage. My focus, well, wait, before I get to that, Spencer Pratt. I just need to take a poll. Yeah. I definitely knew who Spencer Pratt was. I'm guessing Jen did. Yes. No chance you did, no chance you did, no chance any of you ever watched
How did you know that Jen would know and we wouldn't?
She was major. I knew there was a chance, but I was positive you three never, and you're darn proud of it.
Okay, excuse me.
Chris is the generation of the hills. He might know.
He is, but I don't think he watched.
Okay, you're half right. But I knew him because I knew that he existed as a cultural figure.
Okay, fine.
Wait,
but I did not watch.
Was The Hills a regular TV show, or was it like a reality show contest?
It was a reality show, it was a
more like the
regular
Kardashians,
reality,
not a contest, but
So it's
people.
like Jersey Shore.
Yeah,
Yes,
right,
yes,
exactly.
yes.
As
Like I
a
was
Jersey
gonna say-
Shore
Yes,
super fan,
yes.
anything you can relate back to Jersey Shore, I will understand it.
Jim Tam Laundry, Paulie G. Who would
I think
have guessed?
I literally think one of them was going to run for governor of New Jersey, actually.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm going to be this table's Snooki for now and tell you that the green barrage I'm thinking about is I don't know that the average voter understands just how much money is going into all of these campaigns and will be going forward, right?
Yeah.
Thomas Massey's primary was just the most expensive we've seen. We're seeing the same thing when it comes to Ken Paxton. And so many of these giant donors aren't even setting foot in the states where they're writing these massive checks. And look no further than Donald Trump, who has trained our mega wealthy. And the mega wealthy at the end of Joe Biden's term have now become extraordinarily wealthier than that. And so for them to write big checks right now, it's like water. When you think about the amount of money in AI, in crypto, even in finance right now, they're writing such giant checks because they know from a Donald Trump presidency that you can't just influence politics, you can control it. Think about what happened just a couple of weeks ago. Donald Trump was about to sign an executive order about AI because we saw American voters from state to state to state say, this isn't working for me. And he was starting to get pressure to listen to the American voter. And hours before he signed that executive order, he got calls from AI CEOs, and suddenly he said, forget it. So I think what's so interesting about these elections and even these midterms, it's almost going to be the billionaire donor class versus the American voter, because the checks are right now so big and they're only getting bigger. Will the American voter realize, hey, the people that are starting to control my state and local politics might not even live in my state or locality, and what am I going to do about it?
Can I just throw something on the table a little bit? That's a little bit of water on that, and because I agree fundamentally that is very true, but there is something to be said about the voter, and it plays out in two fronts. On the money front, what you just described, oh, there's money coming to my state. Trust me, I have been the victim of a lot of money coming into a campaign against me, and I've been the beneficiary as well. But when I was the beneficiary running for the United States Senate in 2006 against Ben Cardin, I raised more money than Ben Cardin in a Democratic state and lost. So because you have the cash doesn't dictate what the vote is going to be. Because that billionaire only has one vote, and he's got a lot of money he's got to spread. So the question then becomes on the candidates, the state parties, the organizations, the structure, the infrastructure. In the case of Democrats, how do they really plan and prepare and take the dollars they are spending to put it on the ground? The second part is on redistricting. A lot of folks right now sitting here go, oh my God, they just drew the lines in Texas. What happened in Texas? They drew those five lines, and guess what? 2 to 3 of those seats are competitive this November. So this is the point. You may draw the lines, baby, all day long, but that will not dictate how the voters inside those lines.
I'm not saying the biggest check wins,
I know you're
but
not.
I'm saying that biggest check is so much bigger than we
Than it used to be, totally.
But the reason I kind of wanted to wedge in there is because the thinking a lot of voters have is that because they've spent a lot of money, they're going to win, my vote doesn't matter. And what I'm trying to say is, no, you're still in the game, even though a lot of cash may be coming in for the opponent. you're still in the game because there are probably a lot more of you ready to vote against him than there are people who are putting money into his
I
campaign.
think that the biggest issue here is the anti-incumbency aspect. I mean, Spencer Pratt basically ran for a long time saying, my house burned down. It's bad. Vote for me. And a lot of people in LA were like, yeah, we just went through that and we don't like what we're getting now. It doesn't mean it's entirely rational. It doesn't mean it's policy driven. It's about we don't like the thing representing us, and we're seeing this across the country in so many parts.
Yeah, and I think, you know, obviously when you listen to Josh Tarek give his speech in Iowa, the change versus more of the same is going to be, every single measure we have of people's satisfaction with the status quo. Interestingly, increasingly across ideological lines and across geographical lines, it's like people are like, big thumbs down. Even sometimes when like the data doesn't even match it. Like if you look at the consumer confidence index and you try to match it to model on the macroeconomic data, like it doesn't work. It's they've become totally unhinged. The mood is profoundly, relentlessly sour. That mood of sourness really, really, really hurt Democrats in 2024 when they were running as an incumbent party. It's a very different situation now. And I think you're right that the positioning of who's an incumbent and who's not. I mean, to go back to that Iowa race, Ernst retiring was an interesting call.
Yeah.
So you're going to have someone who's not the incumbent, but the person they're going to nominate tonight, Ashley Hinson, is an incumbent Republican member of Congress, right? So Turek is going to...
Who's tied to Trump.
Who's tied to Trump, who's going to try to paint her with that with every brush. And I think the shoe's on the other foot a little bit in the LA mayoral race, because the question of who's the pilot of the status quo changes depending on what circumstance you're in.
Well, let's go back to Los Angeles. Let's go back to Jacob Soboroff in Los Angeles, where there's still apparently a very long line to vote. Polls have closed, but anybody who's still in line will be able to cast their vote. We say that every state, every election night. It's always the case, but it looks like the line there is pretty impressive, Jacob.
It is very healthy, Rachel, and it's even healthier now that they passed out. Can you show us what you have there? They came by, and the pizza to the polls showed up. So there's pizza for everybody that wants to have it out at the polls tonight. I'm going to come and catch up with you guys in 1 second, but I just did want to weigh in on the Spencer Pratt conversation. Rachel, Spencer Pratt lost his home in the Palisades fire. Viewers of our network know I lost the house I grew up in. My parents didn't live there anymore, but it burned down in the Palisades as well. My brother lost the house that he was living in. So many of us knew people that went through this. It was the defining issue of Spencer Pratt's campaign. It's the reason he decided to run for the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. But this populism, or this form of populism that he has tried to sell to voters of Los Angeles, and many people have bought into it. I guess we'll see when we get those first results in just a couple of minutes here in Los Angeles County, is belied by the facts that underscore who Spencer Pratt really is. He said he was living in a trailer. I think Jen mentioned that, on his empty lot in the Palisades. Actually, he was living at the Hotel Bel Air, according to reporting, or at his parents' house in a very fancy part of the California coast west of Los Angeles. Spencer Pratt talks about unhoused people and the affordability crisis in Los Angeles, but the way he speaks about unhoused people here in LA is just like Donald Trump talks about immigrants in the United States of America, that he wants to round them up and put them into a quote-unquote campus-like facility in partnership with the federal government. He's got a lot of boastful, loud opinions about what he wants to do to the city of Los Angeles and about the problems that he sees here. I think we all see those problems, but his solutions sound a lot more like the guy at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue than both Karen Bass, the Democratic mayor here, or Nithya Raman, the progressive challenger who has worked on many of these issues for a long time. And I think we'll ultimately see tonight what happens there.
Jacob, what's your assessment of how Karen Bass has fielded those complaints and that political parrying from Pratt and others, particularly about the fires, but also just about her mayoral legacy?
I think that Karen Bass came in as a well-known congresswoman from the Los Angeles area, serving decades in the United States Congress, and was a community organizer before that, and had a lot of goodwill here. The fires, this is my hometown and my community, Pacific Palisades, where I grew up. Altadena on the other side of town is not in Los Angeles City, it's in Los Angeles County, so voters in Altadena are not voting for the mayor of Los Angeles tonight while they are voting for the governor. They were unhappy about the fires, obviously. This was the costliest wildfire event in the history of the United States of America, though you wouldn't know it if it was up to the Trump administration, because they disbanded the $1 billion billion disaster registry at NOAA, which keeps track of many of those things. Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom have both gone to fight in Washington, D.C. to get supplemental money in the recovery of the fires. Gavin Newsom told me he couldn't get a meeting with as much as an intern when he went to FEMA to try to meet with the Trump administration. Karen Bass went and sat in the Oval Office and couldn't get $8 billion out of this administration. They have certainly tried. Understand why the constituency in the Palisades is upset about what's going on there, but there are many other issues here that people in Los Angeles are voting on, which is why Karen Bass is not done yet.
Jacob, thanks very much. We'll be checking back in with you over the course of the night. Polls are now closed in California, and we are starting to get some of the first vote in. Let's go to Ali Velshi at the big board to talk to us about what we are seeing thus far and from where.
All right, we've got 6% of the vote in California right now. Mostly, I'll tell you, this is where it's coming from right now. One of the bigger areas we're getting vote in from right now, in fact, well over 100,000 votes, 140,000 votes, 52% of the vote in San Bernardino County, and Steve Hilton is in the lead here. San Jose, we got 47% of the vote in. Javier Becerra is in the lead there. Steve Hilton is in second place, followed by Tom Steyer. In fact, if you just pull out statewide, it's just 6% of the vote. And again, you can see there are major centers from which we have 0 vote. Los Angeles, nothing from around there, nothing from around San Francisco. So we're waiting for all of that. But at the moment, Steve Hilton is in the lead with 28% of the vote to 24.5% for Javier Becerra and 17% for Tom Steyer. So there is vote. It is real. We do not have it from a lot of major centers in the state yet. And again, I remind you, there are people who are not just in line right now to vote, but you could postmark your ballot by today, and that ballot won't even be received for a week or so. It is a very popular thing to do in California, to vote by mail. So very early results. It's way too early to read anything into it, but there are significant numbers. I mean, if you look at the total numbers right now, the lead is almost 17,000 on about almost 200,000 votes, more than 200, almost 300,000 votes cast right now. Again, there will be millions of votes that are counted in California, so we have a way to go, but we have started getting numbers in.
Ali, let's go to Iowa. Can I ask you to walk us through a couple of things? First of all, in the governor's race, obviously we've got an uncontested Democratic race for the governorship. On the Republican side, very much a contested primary. Can you show us what we've got so far on the Republican primary for governor? And then I'd also like you to talk to us a little bit more about Turek versus Walz and how we got that Senate race on the Democratic side.
All right, so we know that Rob Sand is the nominee, ran unopposed as the Democratic nominee. He's the only Democrat who holds statewide office in Iowa, and Democrats feel like they've got some good chance with him. Again, for the gubernatorial primary, 91% of the vote is in, and the expectation largely was that Randy Feenstra would be in the lead. He's down by less than 1%, only 1,400 votes separating Zach Lon from Randy Feenstra. And we've been wondering all night whether in some of the places that are left where we don't have a vote, and there are only 4 counties where we don't have a vote yet, whether Feenstra would pick up more of this. But this one's going to be tricky to watch. I will say there's an obscure rule, as we discussed in Iowa, in that if there are more than 2 candidates, one has to get more than 35% to win. For the moment, it looks like Zach Lon and Randy Feenstra have surpassed that, because if they don't, this would have to be decided by a party conference on June 13th. But we're going to watch this very closely. It's very rare that you get to 92% of the vote in and you can't call a race. In the Senate primary, Josh Turek, who we heard speak at 10:30 Eastern, has won that. 86% of the vote is in, 62%, almost 63% for Josh Turek versus 37% for Zach Walz. Both very strong candidate. As you can see, there are 4 counties that don't have vote in. They're a little bit more rural, so the numbers won't be very big there. There is one county, well, there are 3 counties that Zach Walz did very well in. One of them is Johnson County. That's where he's from. He got 58% of the vote to 41 for Josh Turek, and neighboring counties, Louisa and Cedar County, where he's done well. But this is a real thing, because there's an open governor seat and an open Senate seat. That hasn't happened in Iowa since the 1960s. So one of the things that this has done is it has put Iowa, we have now moved Iowa. Iowa was down here, likely Republican. That's sort of almost That's almost always Republican. We've moved Iowa into lean Republican. This just happened an hour ago. So now you've got, these are the seats that Democrats are looking at. You've got toss-ups, North Carolina. Again, Roy Cooper doing well there. You talked to John Ossoff. We talked to John Ossoff earlier this evening. Maine, Michigan, Ohio, Texas, Alaska, and Iowa is now in the lean Republican category. It's a matter of degrees, but it's important that Iowa feels a little more competitive for Democrats tonight than it did even just a few hours ago.
A very consequential win by Josh Turek in that Iowa Senate race. And Josh Turek's about to get very famous as Democrats in particular all over the country learn about him as their nominee in Iowa.
Yep.
Yes, we have the aforementioned, the winner of the Iowa Democratic primary for Senate, Josh Turek, our only national interview tonight, and the only one he'll be giving. First, Representative, it's great to have you on, and congratulations on your victory tonight.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for having me. A lot of excitement and enthusiasm happening here in Iowa.
Well, you know, campaigns are a learning process, I think, for any candidate. They're grueling, and you spend a lot of time talking to people, which is the great thing about them. What did you learn campaigning among Democrats statewide in Iowa for this seat? What did you learn that you didn't know when you started?
Well, the thing that I heard by far the most was how many Iowans are hurting, just struggling to keep food on the table, a roof above their head, and now with the conflict in Iran, just to be able to keep gas in their tank. And the Iowans are looking for change and looking for hope. This is a state that has completely hit the bottom. We are dead last for economic growth, 48 for personal income growth, closed 250 more healthcare clinics than we've opened in the last 15 years, leading the nation in cancer rates. Now we lead the nation in farm foreclosures because of the tariffs. Iowa has hit the bottom, and Iowans are ready for change and ready for change in this country as well. And I'm seeing hope in people's eyes for the very first time. In a long time.
Rob Sand is already an elected statewide Democrat. He's running for governor. How do you think that the interplay between those two campaigns works? I know that there's a lot of excitement because Sand looks like he's got a real shot at the gubernatorial level as well.
Yeah, as you had mentioned earlier, this is the first time since 1968 that we've got an open governor's race and an open Senate race together, 2 open congressional races. I know that a lot of your viewers will look at Iowa as a red state, and what I've been going around the state saying over and over and over is we're not a red state. We're a common sense state that has masqueraded more red than what we were. We're 30 years. We elected Senator Tom Harkin, Obama twice, Trump 3 times. We have more Obama-Trump counties than any other state in the union. And you look at Trump's last midterm, and I think there's significantly more energy and desire for change now than even then. We won 3 of the 4 congressional races. This is a generational chance. No power of incumbency, a state that has hit the bottom, and candidates like myself and Rob Sand with proven ability to be able to win over the independents and the moderate Republicans. We can win this thing.
For viewers that are just kind of getting to know you, maybe even possibly this evening, who did not see some of your ads, which were, by the way, great. You're a multi-time Paralympian. You met your wife playing basketball abroad. You are a true baller, which, of course, I love and respect. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about that career trajectory and how it took you back to Iowa to try to join the U.S. Senate.
Sure. Well, I'm born and raised in Council Bluffs, Iowa, working class family, working class community. I was born with my disability. I was born with a condition called spina bifida. It's due to my father's exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam. Had 21 surgeries before I was even 12, so understand the adversity of what so many people are going through with economic and healthcare struggles. Did find wheelchair basketball. It really honestly saved my life. Was able to play professional wheelchair basketball, and then the great highlight of my basketball career was able to represent the United States in 4 Paralympic Games and win back-to-back gold medals. Is something I'm very proud of, and now trying to represent in a much more meaningful way, because I think it's a generational opportunity that we have here in Iowa to be able to win Senator Harkin's seat back. And honestly, I'm only here because of the work that Senator Harkin did on the American with Disabilities Act.
Is there the same, less or more trash talking in wheelchair basketball, would you say?
I'll tell you this. I always thought that the hardest thing that I was going to do in my life was winning gold medals. But I will say this: I'm not as physically tired doing this, but this is without a doubt the hardest thing that I've done. It's a lot of long days, and it is arduous. But this is certainly the most meaningful work that I've ever done in my life. I think a life dedicated to public service, in service to others, trying to make your state and your community better, is the best way to live. And this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity here in Iowa to win this Senate seat. And if we can win here in Iowa, I think we can change this country, and that's really exciting.
All right, Josh Turek, thank you so much for making time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Josh Turek, the Democratic nominee for United States Senate from the great state of Iowa, making a very good case to Democrats nationwide that this is a winnable seat. Democrats in Iowa certainly have been very excited about that and about their shots at that governor's race. And now we know who that candidate will be. It's going to be really interesting to watch there. We've still got a lot coming in tonight. I'm told, just got a bit more vote coming in California. In terms of the governor's race, we've now got 17% of the vote. Again, what we're looking for here is the top two candidates who will proceed to the general election in November. Right now, with 17% of the vote in, that is Republican Fox News guy Steve Hilton and Democratic former congressman, former chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, former Health and Human Services Secretary, former California Attorney General Xavier Becerra. We'll be keeping close eyes on this as these numbers continue to roll in. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, we've got some results in. We're looking at a half dozen states across the country that are voting tonight. New Mexico governor in the Democratic primary, former U.S. Interior Secretary and Democratic Congresswoman Deb Haaland has prevailed in the Democratic primary for governor in New Mexico. On to Montana, looking at on the Republican primary in New Mexico's governor race, right now with 72% in, we've got Gregory Hull in the lead over Doug Turner. That, of course, will be an uphill battle. New Mexico is a reliably blue state these days. Montana. The Senate primary in Montana is complicated and interesting. But in the Democratic primary in Montana, Alani Bankhead right now leading Riley Neal. We'll keep a close eye on this one. Less than half the vote in here. Also an independent candidate in Montana, really scrambling expectations in terms of what might happen in this race. On the Republican side of the U.S. Senate primary in Montana, Kurt Alme has been projected the winner. He was basically handed this by Steve Daines, who was the outgoing incumbent Republican senator who waited until like a nanosecond before the filing deadline to announce that he was leaving. Oh, and by the way, I endorse Kurt, and he's already declared. It was a bit of a three-card Monty to get that nomination to Alme, but it worked. In Montana's 1st congressional district in the Republican primary, Aaron Flint, the projected winner over Christy Jacobson. That 1st congressional district is competitive. Democrats like their odds. They like their shot at this. It's been a hotly contested primary on the Democratic side for that 1st congressional district. Right now, with 55% of the vote in, we've got Ryan Busse with a narrow lead over Sam Forstag, who's had a lot of national attention. He's a smoke jumper and has had endorsements from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, and others. We'll keep watching those closely. Really interesting cases there. On to the New Jersey, one of the many primaries that we're watching in New Jersey. This 7th congressional district is of particular national interest because this is one of the swingiest districts in the whole country, certainly the swingiest district in New Jersey. It's held by incumbent Republican Tom Kean, who ran unopposed on the Republican side tonight, but he also hasn't been seen in months. So it really matters who the Democrat is going to be taking on Tom Kean. We now know it'll be Navy helicopter pilot Rebecca Bennett prevailing in that Democratic primary tonight in New Jersey's 7th district. Now, 31% of the vote is in California. This is where we're at right now with the California gubernatorial primary. There isn't a Democratic primary that's separate from a Republican primary. Everybody's all in, and the top two go to a runoff election in November. So we're looking for top two finishers. Javier Becerra, Steve Hilton, and Tom Steyer sort of in contention right now. The only candidates right now in double digits with 31% of the vote in. Ali, what can you tell us about, excuse me, the Los Angeles mayor's race? 39% of the vote in the Los Angeles mayor's race. This is a nonpartisan election. Right now, the incumbent, Karen Bass, at 38. Spencer Pratt, the Trump-endorsed reality TV guy, at just under 28%. Again, just under 40% of the vote in the California mayor's race. Now, theoretically, if somebody gets 50% in the California mayor, the Los Angeles mayor's race, they'll win, and it'll be over tonight. With this many people running and with this many strong candidates running, it's very unlikely that anybody, even the incumbent, Karen Bass, will cross that 50% threshold, in which case it'll again be the top two finishers going to a runoff election in November. So, Ali, in terms of where we're getting vote from and what our expectations are in terms of any mirages that we should be aware of now, or how things are coming in?
This becomes really important because actually 39% of the vote, I mean, we're half an hour into poll closing, we got 39% of the vote. So on one hand, that's really good and really fast. On the other hand, this could slow down really, really quickly. Karen Bass is actually performing better than expected at 38% right now. But again, there's just no way of telling when this number is going to jump to 49, 59, 69, 79, 89%. So at the moment, Karen Bass is in a good position. This is Los Angeles, so we've got those numbers in, which we've been waiting for. And in fact, a lot of the rest of the state's primary depends on those Los Angeles numbers, which we've been waiting for. Statewide, we have 35% of the vote in. So it's very similar. 39% in Los Angeles, 35% statewide. Same problem. Could jump fast, could jump real slow. And when I say slow, we could mean more than a week. But for the moment, Javier Becerra, who was polling higher than anyone else, although it was very slim, is in the lead, 26.4%. Steve Hilton is at 25.6%. Tom Steyer, at this point, is underperforming in his numbers because their polling numbers were actually very, very close. He's underperforming. In fact, he's only got two counties, roughly, that are coming in his favor. 30% here, where he's got 24% against Steve Hilton up in Northern California, and then in Southern California and Santa Barbara County, he's got 21%. Again, Steve Hilton coming in second place to 25%. Steve Hilton's coming in either in first place or in second place in a lot of these areas. We're waiting for some of the more populated areas. We have nothing coming in from San Francisco yet, but right above it, Marin County. This is interesting because that's where Tom Steyer's from, and that's where Tom Steyer's donor base is sort of from in Marin County, and he's running second to Becerra there. In San Mateo County, Becerra is in the lead with 26.8%. Steve Hilton's in the second place. So this is giving us a bit of a story that Becerra, who is, he's got a lot to his name. He is one of these guys as Attorney General. He sued the Trump administration in the first Trump administration, I think about 122 different times. He was a cabinet secretary in the Biden administration. He's coming across as sort of the normal stable guy that Californians may want to put forward as their gubernatorial candidate. But the dream for a lot of California Democratic voters would be to have two Democrats in the top spot, in which case one would definitely win in November. It may turn out, again, we're at 44%, so we've had a bit of a jump, 44%. It may turn out that you've got Becerra and Steve Hilton. I've heard the argument that may motivate people to come out and vote, Democrats to come out and vote, rather than knowing that they're going to have a Democratic governor. I don't know that to be true. It's hard to tell. And again, I'll warn you, it's 44% of the vote in a vote that could take a long time to figure out. I want to just quickly go back to the L.A. mayor race and see if we've got a jump in the vote there. No, we're still at 39%. Karen Bass still at 38%. Of the 39%, that's a lead of 31,000 votes. So we'll stay on top of it, but probably a better situation for Karen Bass to be in than what the polling indicated.
Interesting. All right, Lawrence O'Donnell standing by for us in Los Angeles right now. We're going to take a quick break. Be back with him right after this. Stay with us. If you are still in line to vote in California and you were there before polls closed 37 minutes ago, please stay in line. Polls are closed, but if you were in line, you can still vote. Right now, with 37% of the vote in the gubernatorial all-party primary, we've got Xavier Becerra and Steve Hilton very close to one another in the top two positions. Tom Steyer in the third position right now, but again, less than 40% of that vote in. Looking specifically at Los Angeles, the nation's second largest city, where we've got a hot fight for this mayoral election. Incumbent Mayor Karen Bass standing at 36.5% of the vote, about 6 points ahead of the Trump-endorsed reality TV guy Spencer Pratt. This is with 45% of the vote in. Our friend Lawrence O'Donnell is in Los Angeles watching these results come in along with us. Lawrence, when you and I talked last night in our handover at 10 p.m. Eastern, when I was going from my show to your show, you said that you not only hadn't voted yet, but you still didn't know how you were going to vote. Did you figure it out? Did you vote? Was it hard to figure out what to do? How do you feel about it?
It was harder than it has ever been, and it took longer because the electorate here, especially on the Democratic side, was really shaken when Eric Swalwell dropped out of the race. Not because of support for Eric Swalwell, but because of the unpredictability of the race. Who's going to drop out next, and for what reason? Would some of the lower polling candidates drop out because they're in the single digits? And would there be some kind of coalescing in the polls that Democratic voters could look at and say, okay, here is strategically how we have to vote when what really matters is who comes in first and second. And there was a painfully long period in the polling where it looked at least theoretically possible that two Republicans could come in first and second tonight. That is now clearly impossible and has been impossible for the last couple of weeks. But it took quite a while for voters here on the Democratic side to settle down. And then they just had to stare at these candidates and make a slow and careful decision. That's why, I mean, I voted today on Election Day for the first time in literally as long as I can remember. It was like a reunion at the polling place, people who hadn't seen each other in a long time. And friends of mine texted me tonight saying, I'm in line tonight, because I didn't decide until today. And there's two tough decisions. Actually, Democrats had two tough decisions, including in the mayor's race, as you can see. Two Democrats running in the mayor's race. And I had someone standing in line tonight at 7:30 saying, she hadn't decided which one of those Democrats to vote for in the mayor's race. That's what was slowing her down in casting her ballot. And so it has also turned California voters into strategic voters. There was a progressive group that rates the candidates that was suggesting that the vote be for Tom Steyer so that he would come in second because they were confident Becerra would come in first. So they were advocating voting for Steyer, not because they were choosing him or endorsing him, but saying strategically, vote for him. Then you'll get two Democrats in November and nothing to worry about. So it's been just a mess of strategic confusion for California voters right up till the last minute here.
And with, as we get to 30, 40, 50% of the vote in, it looks like we're going to have definitely some drama tonight in terms of figuring out who the top two finishers are going to be in each of these races. But in the meantime, Lawrence, I understand you have a special guest.
Yes, we do. We're going to bring in California's Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna, who is joining us tonight. Congressman Khanna, you made your decision on the governor's race a while ago. How did you decide?
I liked Tom Steyer because he was for the billionaire tax, because of his record on climate, because he's for single-payer health care. But let me just say, it looks like Xavier Becerra is likely to be one of the top two. I have a lot of respect for him. He served well in the Biden administration. He was an effective attorney general. And if he were to win, he'd be the first Latino governor. But I wouldn't count out Steyer. And the reason is that a lot of the late-breaking votes, anecdotally and through some of the exit polls, are breaking for Steyer. And it would be fantastic if we end up with two Democrats. If there's no Republican on the ticket, that would really help us win back the 5 House seats that we need in California.
But just to stay with the strategy of that for a second, if there's no Republican on the ticket, would that depress the Democratic vote statewide? Would that then reduce your chances of picking up those House seats that you want to pick up? Because Democratic voters don't feel some won't feel they need to go to the polls in November.
I don't think so, Lawrence. Look, the one thing Democrats in California is energized. They want to stand up to Donald Trump. They want to stand up to Donald Trump, who shafted us after the fires, didn't give us money, who did the awful ICE raids in Los Angeles, and they're going to come out. If the Republicans don't have a gubernatorial nominee, I actually think it would depress Republican turnout. But look, we are poised, in my view, to win at least 4 of those seats. The hardest seat is going to be the Valadao seat. The last I checked, Randy Villegas is up there. We'll see how that plays out. He's a very strong candidate. But California is going to deliver. And I give the governor, Governor Newsom, Speaker Pelosi, Zoe Lofgren, a lot of credit for mobilizing us in Prop 50 and getting 5 seats, which we're hopefully going to deliver to get Hakeem Jeffries to be Speaker.
Congressman Connor, we've been having a discussion of money in these campaigns. No one has seen the kind of money in California that Tom Steyer, your candidate, has spent. LA Times reporting this morning that his $200 million that he has spent to get this far is 20 times more than what the frontrunner, Javier Becerra, has spent to get to this point. What does that tell you about money in politics in California?
Well, it's a terrible thing. And look, neither side is pure. I mean, Javier Becerra is getting a ton of money from donors and corporate donors, but Tom Steyer is spending hundreds of millions of his own money. And this is why, in my view, we need to ban all super PAC money. We should ban individuals from spending more than the contribution limits. I mean, I don't take PAC money, I don't take super PAC money, and I don't use my own money in elections. And I really think the Americans people are tired of super PAC money or self-funded candidates, and it's a real flaw in our political system.
Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Rachel?
Thank you, Lawrence. That was excellent. I was still watching while you were talking. We're still watching for more numbers coming in, both from the Los Angeles mayoral election and from that gubernatorial race. We're starting to see some significant numbers in a number of House seats that we have been watching as well. I will also tell you, among all of these storylines that we're following on the elections tonight, we're also following some breaking news. A dramatic decision from the United States Supreme Court tonight, okaying the Alabama congressional map, which this United States Supreme Court had previously struck down as deliberately racially discriminatory. We talked about that at the top of this special coverage tonight. We also talked about the dramatic firing at CBS News of veteran 60 Minutes journalist, correspondent Scott Pelley. We've got a little bit of a development in that story that we're going to tell you about right on the other side of this break. Stay with us.